Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, June 11th, 2018. Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Leaks May. Here. Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
Here.
Councilmember Piana.
Here.
And Mayor Coulter.
Here. We have a quorum. In fact, we have a full house tonight, literally. Next item of business would be the approval of the agenda. What is council's pleasure on the agenda this evening?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Leaks May and supported by Polika. Any discussion on the agenda? If not, Marnie, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
Yes.
Councilmember Piana.
Yes.
Leaks May. Yes. And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Now, moving on to our next item of business is presentations, and we have a number of presentations this evening. I'll get there. Our informal rule is to try to keep it to about 5 minutes, and because we have so many of them this evening, I'll ask our speakers if they could try to keep to that time limit. That would be great. And our first presentation is the Artist in You Achievement Ceremony with our very own Chamber of Commerce, Ferndale Area Chamber of Commerce. And Dale and Kimberly is going to introduce that item. Excellent. Come on up. Oh, Jay as well. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kimberly, and I'm the Director of Operations for the Ferndale Area Chamber of Commerce. This is Jay McMillan. He's our previous chair for the Ferndale Chamber, and this is Del Villarolo. He's our current chair. We have 5 winners today that we are going to announce that won our Artist in You contest. This is an art contest for our students in the local area. So for our third place, we have Christina Kristiak. I'm not sure if she's here. Christina, come on up.
Hey.
Christina actually had 2 submissions. She's receiving 2 checks today because she actually tied her own submissions for third place.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. We also have 3 second place ties. The first one will be Grace Pancost. Is Grace here today? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. The other winner will be Orla Fournier.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you for your participation. Our final, is that Grace? Rachel. And the other one will be Rachel Emmons. Rachel Emmons. Thank you, Rachel. Now, for our first place winner, we are going to have her painting actually posted on the, there's like a balcony on the porch, which is on Woodward and Troy, right behind the Woodward Avenue Brewers. It will be up by July 1st, and that winner is Melanie Shaw. Thank you so much, Melanie. Is Lemonu back there? Mr. Lemonu? Oh. Mr. Lemonu, would you like to come up and say a 2-minute snippet really quickly? Some of this would not have happened without him. He is our instructor, and he makes sure everything happens. So come on up, Mr. Lemonu.
Teaching at CASA, which is where all these students went to school, is just a wonderful experience. I don't know how much I inspire them, but I sure do know how much they inspire me. This work is just a sampling of what the kids do. I'm very, very proud of them, and they deserve everything. Thank you.
Excellent.
Grace is here.
Come on up.
Grace, were you being shy?
Just walk in like- That's great.
And thank you, everyone, for coming out.
And thank you, Chamber, for arranging that and highlighting the talent in our students. Excellent. Our next presentation is Youth in Government, and our County Commissioner, Helene Zach, is going to introduce that presentation. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening. I decided to do it the Ferndale way with a picture
Excellent.
for my report. Well, I had the pleasure of doing Youth in Government Day, and we had Ferndale Schools come again this year. And it's really fun for me. And what we try and do is a very interactive, problem-solving experience so that students can sit in my seat, literally. And they worked with MSU Extension educators where they had to move around our auditorium thinking about different problem areas. Then we proposed 3 different resolutions that they had to argue for and against. And one of them that I sat through was, should we have clear backpacks in schools to prevent, violence from going on? And the students are amazing. Then they also had presentations. They got to see, I always like the chief judge and another judge in action where they get Q&A with our judge to learn about the court. They also had a presentation from the Sheriff's Department with our K-9 unit doing tricks and, demonstrating bomb sniffing. But it was a really wonderful day, and I wanted to thank Ferndale Schools for sending the students.
Excellent.
And
I'm curious, what did they decide on clear backpacks?
they didn't like the idea.
Good.
There was a lot of discussion about the privacy issue and that if, who should pay for it, if I can't afford to do that, should the schools be doing it, on and on. They did not like that. They had lots of other wonderful ideas that were very helpful on talking about school violence. And this was conducted by one of our people from our Sheriff's Department, and she, walked away with some ideas, so it was really productive. Quickly, if you read newspapers, listen to our mayor in Pleasant Ridge, our demographer, that our community, Oakland County, is going to look older than youth by 2025, and just recognizing that we're prepared for what we call the silver tsunami. And with that, Friday, June 15th is in recognition of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. There is a presentation at the Jewish Senior Life Facility at Fleischman Residence, 67 West Maple, West Bloomfield. And it's open to everybody. It's just this one organization hosting it. They have a presenter on elder abuse from the Disability Network. It starts at 1. There's a financial abuse program that's offered through Wayne State SAFE program. And then from 3 to 4, 10 things you need to protect yourself, presented by a lawyer who represents elder care law. So it is available. If you have more questions, you can call 248-592-5048 for more information. Finally, tomorrow I have the opportunity, one of the things I do as county commissioner representing Ferndale is I serve on the SEMCOG, on the Southeast Michigan Council on Government organization, and tomorrow I'm actually sitting at the table trying to decide on TAP grants. And I know that Ferndale has several different presentations, and I will certainly try and advocate on the behalf. So we'll see what happens.
appreciate
I'm
that.
one of the deciding factors, so look
Awesome.
forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. All right, our next presentation is the Boys and Girls Club, also known as the Jack and Annette Aronson Ferndale Club. And I see Brett Talander and is our unit director here as well. And so if you can squeeze yourself, oh, and have our Parks representative as well. Awesome. Oh, you're going to introduce this item.
Yes.
I'm sorry, all
I am
right.
going to introduce Mr. Brett Talander.
Excellent.
From the Boys and Girls Club, CEO of Oakland County, Oakland and Macomb County. Many of you may not know, but they were ranked top 10 nationally out of 1,100 clubs. So we are really blessed to have them as a community partner here in Ferndale. They also, we house them in the Kulik Center. And they do a wonderful job. Over 40% of their clientele are teenagers, and you know that is a very, very hard group to work with. But they do a wonderful job, and they continue to work tirelessly with us.
Yeah.
They're here today to do a presentation, and we at the Kulik are really, really happy to have them here, along with Rachel, who works with us daily. Brett works with us and talks to us constantly about how we can work together to service that population.
Excellent.
Please welcome Mr. Brett Talander.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be back, and thank you, Mayor and council members and City Manager April. And I just want to compliment the leadership of Lorena and Lisa. It has been a breath of fresh air and wonderful as we've continued this partnership. I remember it wasn't too long ago that we were in this room talking about moving from the middle school and the high school to the Kulik Center and being able to look at, is this a good fit? And will this make sense? And great questions. And we're here tonight to provide kind of a community impact report to all of you here. For you, those of you who don't know, and those of who may be new to the community, the Boys and Girls Club offers all of the programs and services that we offer throughout the school year, immediately after school dismisses until the end of the day when Parks and Rec turns over to adult recreation. All of our programs and services, from tutoring to the athletics to a safe place to be after school, for $50 a year. And that, in many cases, is something that we have to also scholarship, because a single mom who comes in with 4 kids, they're not able to necessarily make that payment. So our staff are empowered to be able to, when there is an evident need and no questions asked, we just scholarship those folks. And the only way we can do it is really because a community like you comes together and says this is an important thing for us, and we value the youth here. And that's been the story since we opened in Ferndale in 2006. The story has been so good that we have a waiting list that is of 90 families that would like to be able to attend, who are not able to now. Rachel, who is our unit director at the Jack and Annette Aronson unit here, has worked. One of the biggest challenges and greatest frustrations we had were siblings who had joined at a younger age, who now had been with the club for a long time, but their younger brothers and sisters weren't able to join because we were at capacity. So we have that down to single digits now in terms of the siblings who are on a waiting list. But you can imagine 90 families here in Ferndale who would like to be able to have a safe place for their kids to participate in after-school programming. The school district has been exceptionally supportive with busing from the elementary schools and getting kids to the club. And of course, the staff and the commitment here administratively, it is unquestioned how much it is evident that there is a commitment to the youth in this community. There's a great need. We're not blessed with large space, but there are big hearts in this community who really do care about the kids. And one of the things I wanted to share with you, and we'll leave this information with you as well, often we look for evidence about the impact that we're having. We want our kids to graduate from high school. We want to make sure that our kids don't become encumbered with teen pregnancy that creates a challenge for the boy and the girl. We want to make sure that our kids don't have contact with law enforcement, that they have a plan for their future, whether that's a skilled trades or the university, whatever their path is, that they can create their own plan for their own life. It's important for us. And the University of Michigan just did a study on Boys and Girls Clubs, and a single dollar invested here in the state of Michigan in our Boys and Girls Club returns to the community $12.64. So although I'm a Spartan, and there are those Spartans in the room, and one standing next to me, the University of Michigan's report is in here for you. And I wanted to give Rachel just a moment to be able to share her perspective. But on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club and all the members that count on the Boys and Girls Club as the safe, affordable space for them in the community, I just want to thank all of you for the foresight, for those of you who were at the table who made this happen several years ago, and for your continued support and seeing that we're able to meet the growing needs in Ferndale when it comes to youth. It was great to see the Commissioner, Sarah Esser is in the blue shirt, and longtime club member and staff member with our club. So Rachel will speak, and is it okay if I bring these up to you?
Please, yeah. If you give them to Marnie, she'll distribute them to us. Thanks. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, I just wanted to specifically thank everyone here for the opportunity to work with the youth in this community and the city of Ferndale and the Ferndale Schools community. We serve ages 6 to 18, and we have, again, great youth to work with, so thank you for that opportunity. We're winding down the school year. We actually only have 1 day left. We are closing for our school year program tomorrow, and I know I, as well as the rest of our staff and our club members, are really, really excited for all the opportunities that'll start with next school year and the opportunities to serve more club members more effectively. So thank you all for your support, and, check us out and learn more about the Boys and Girls Club in the area. Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight, and I will also add, Brett and Rachel, I know you know this, but there are some preliminary discussions about how we can expand space somewhere, and I think it's our intention, I know it's our intention that you be a part of that, and so we hope to be able to grow your opportunity to serve more kids in this community, so stay tuned. But thank you for all that you're doing for the kids in our community, we appreciate it.
Through the chair, may I ask
Yeah.
just a brief follow-up question?
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
Yeah.
So then you quoted a number of 90 students that you've got on backlog. Is that just at the Ferndale location? You've got 90?
It's actually 90 families
90 families?
here in Ferndale that
Wow.
would want to access the Boys and Girls Club programming on a regular basis during the school year that we can't bring in because as much as we can make with smoke and mirrors space, we can't go beyond where we're at right now. And we do, when somebody might move or age out, that's where we were able to collapse the sibling waiting list. But there are 90 families who are Ferndale residents trying to get to the Jack and Annette Aronson unit right here.
Wow, and do you have a sense, and I won't hold you to this, but what does, to accommodate the wait list, what does it mean in terms of staff or square footage or space you need additional?
So ideally in this community, what I believe that would really serve the youth of this community, ages 6 to 18, and you could get really creative by serving the silver wave that was just talked about, being able to, while kids are in school, being able to reach the seniors during the daytime. There's a tremendous need for senior activities that start 8 in the morning up until school time. Ideally, you need a full-size gym. Even better, you'd have 15,000 square feet of gym space for pickleball for seniors and activities for youth, a dedicated tech lab, a dedicated games room, a beautiful arts center. Those are the elements of core programming. Ideally, you see those square footages run from 25,000 square feet on the small side to somewhere around 36 to 38,000 square foot on the large side. You will be full in this community, having been a Ferndale resident, knowing the community. There is a hunger for seniors, and there is a hunger for families and youth to have a safe place. Not only just to be, but to be able to grow and to be able to be exposed to the incredible community and the resources that are here in terms of the business community, the art community, the volunteer community. But that would be the square footage. So sorry for the long answer to your.
No, that's fine, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next presentation is by the Mackenzie Deliri and family to Officer John Cleveland. And if you folks want to come forward, and I see Captain Palazzolo as well, are you going to introduce this item, sir? Or is there an emergency somewhere? Look very serious.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Captain.
Officer Cleveland,
Chief,
can you
excuse
step
me.
forward, please?
I am.
Officer Cleveland has spoken over 60 times around local schools about a very personal incident that happened to him and his family. He talks about drunk driving, distracted driving, and texting and driving, drugs and driving, and this is his wife Jody. A few weeks ago, he spoke at Utica High School, and Mackenzie heard that, and she reached out, and it obviously touched her, and they wanted to present Officer Cleveland with some type of recognition. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Good evening, City Council and guests. My name is Mackenzie Dallaire, and I am here with my parents, Pat and Nancy. I'm a former Utica student at Utica High School, I attended Officer Cleveland's assembly at Utica on Friday, April 27th, and it touched me and many families at our school. My brother was hit by a drunk driver 5 years ago, but luckily survived, but had to get brain surgery. When I got home on that Friday, I told my parents about their story, and it touched their hearts like it did mine. We would like to give you and your family this flag of a police flag with the blue stripe on it.
Thank you. That was very generous of you. And Officer Cleveland, thank you for all the work that you do every day to help keep our community safe. It's great to see your wife as well, happy and healthy, which is a great thing. So great to see you both. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Mayor, if I could just say one thing.
Of course.
I just want to thank April and Councilwoman Leaks May and Kara Sokol for attending the event that day. They took the time out and they were there and present for us.
Awesome.
So thanks again for being there. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, folks. It's important work. Thanks. All right. Our next presentation is Main Street, Oakland County. And I see Barry Hicks, and I also see John from Oakland County. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you very much for having us up here. And before we get started with this presentation that John's joined us for, I just real quick wanted to take a second to plug two things for the DDA.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, right? Art of the Cocktail is coming up on Thursday, June 21st at Embrew and Valentine on Vester. That is from 6 to 9 p.m. that Thursday evening. We have 10 bartenders competing for the first place title, all from downtown Ferndale businesses. Tickets are $40 each, and they go to support future projects downtown, art projects like the placemaking thing you saw this summer that is still up over by the Candlewick shop in that alley. Also the bus shelter by the Rust Belt that keeps changing over, and the upkeep on the Dunkin' Donuts statue that you may have noticed after the last Clean the Ferndale up on Woodward Avenue. Also, I wanted to make sure that any retailers that might be out there listening, our downtown businesses or retailers that would like to give a little bit of input, they can come join me and John from the county on June 19th at 9 a.m. at Hambo, Coney Island. And we're just going to be gathering information about what we can help them with and any further training. I know Oakland County's put together some interesting training coming up that quite a few of them are taking advantage of, but there will be more of that coming. But anyway, without further ado, I know that John Bry is joining us from the county here tonight to say a few words about Ferndale's accreditation as a Main Street program. So John, take it away.
I apologize, I was on the Jersey Shore over the weekend and got a little bit of a frog in my throat on the way back, so I'm a little rusty tonight.
You're good.
But my pleasure to be in Ferndale tonight. We've been doing things a little bit different at Main Street, Oakland County over the past year. And we wanted to come to you this year as part of the accreditation process that we do every year with the 11 select level communities that participate in Main Street, Oakland County, which include Ferndale. That family got a little bit bigger in May with Berkeley and Royal Oak, now entering the Main Street Oakland County program, also at the select level. So we currently have 25 communities across the county that participate. And as Barry mentioned last year, we started the tradition of making the rounds and visiting all those communities, and this year adding in the retail conversation, the listening sessions, so we can understand what's happening in the world of small retailers and what we can do to assist them. So, as you know, we do the annual accreditation, and this year it was Kathy LaPlante from the National Main Street Center in Chicago. Kathy's probably been working in Main Street a few more years than I have. I've only got 23. I think she's got 27 years on me. And once again, Ferndale has done an exceptional job I think it's sometimes a challenge for communities such as Ferndale that have been working in historic commercial corridor and downtown revitalization for so many years because people forget. People forget from where you started from and where you began. And I think people in Ferndale really appreciate the unique community that you have here. But sometimes it's always good to kind of stop and look back and just kind of see where things are going. And there's always the challenge of also trying to manage and maintain all that, because it's a very competitive environment out there among the downtowns and the commercial districts. Kathy had nothing but rave reviews for the Ferndale Main Street program / the DDA, and the 10-point criteria that we evaluate the communities on, including broad-based support, including through the local government, which we, again, thank you for that support. I can tell you from working all across the country and the county, where that's not present, the local downtown program often struggles. So congratulations on continuing to see the value of having a strong, vibrant, historic commercial corridor. Engaged board, you have an excellent board right now, you have an excellent staff with Barry, so all the things are going in the right way, and it's good to see Ferndale starting to think about where you want to go next with your district and corridor, and that's sometimes a tough question for a community that's been at it for a while, but you've been very successful, and I have no doubt that you're going to continue to be successful. So without further ado, we brought the show to you this year, and presenting the accreditation plaque. Ferndale is only one of 5 Main Street communities in Oakland County that have achieved accreditation for over 10 years consecutively. So you're in a small elite group of communities that continues to excel. So congratulations, and if anyone here wants to join Barry and myself for the presentation, please come forward. So.
I guess I will as the representative to the DDA.
And I forgot my phone with the NyQuil, so if anyone wants to take it.
Carol will do that. And we'll make sure you get a copy. Thank you.
Through the chair, I do have a question.
Yeah, I can imagine we probably, if you don't mind, just a couple questions, I'm guessing there might be, yeah. Thank you. Yes.
I really
Councilmember Jackson.
appreciate the Main Street program helping our communities grow, but I do want to convey the message that one of our serious barriers to growth is transit, and that is being limited by our county right now, and I'm sure the planning department is well aware of our needs along the Woodward corridor of all of our downtowns. So if you could take that message back, that the biggest barrier for growth in our downtowns is the lack of transit, and that is impacting our ability to grow our retail as well as to address our parking needs here. So please, #1 priority.
Understood.
I know there isn't a short answer or a silver bullet for this one, but you brought up retail, and I know you're doing a listening tour. But, I mean, everybody's had the conversation about how the Amazons of the world are putting out downtown, taking out downtowns and malls like ours. But do you have any sort of brief thoughts on a general strategy for beginning to try to shore that up? Is there, something you can share or something that came out in your surveys?
Yeah, sure. It's an ever-shifting question right now. The market is always going to keep changing, and that's what typically happened to downtowns in the past. The markets were shifting around them, and they weren't necessarily being responsive to those shifts. So that's how the Main Street programs got started nationally, is to look at the economic development opportunities, the market analysis of what was reality and what the opportunities were. And that's where the shift is continuing to go with Main Street, is looking what the opportunities are. You mentioned the gray tsunami coming, which, I'm about ready to be part of that group here in the near future. So it's thinking about even what is that market demographic going to be looking for? How do we need to adapt? Some of the challenges we have in Oakland County, so many of our downtown districts or commercial corridors are also filled to capacity. There's not a lot of room for them to go. And there's also the challenge of affordability in terms of rental rates. Having landlords that are willing to improve their buildings. There's all these factors going on. But in terms of the retail and online, most of the trends are pointing to the historic commercial corridors like Ferndale size, the Birmingham size, Royal Oak size, Berkeley size, et cetera, are actually in a good position, because the shift is actually going back to smaller footprint type retail stores to have that experience, just like you're saying. It's the larger malls, the larger big box stores that are starting to really feel the hit. And we certainly have seen that with some of the malls and larger big box stores, even in Oakland County. It tends to be that some of the malls that are continuing to do well tend to cater to an upper class clientele, that they continue to hang in there and do well. But there is an opportunity and a window for smaller retails to be competitive online and to have those smaller footprints. So those are some of the focuses that we're looking to do at the county through the Main Street program. And we have some workshops coming up in July on that, competing in the age of Amazon. We've also engaged a retail consultant that's working on our behalf to do retail recruitment on behalf of our Main Street communities and take some of that burden off because we know it's a challenge. So we look to be far more engaged on that question and be more proactive. It's tough, no question. There's still a level of responsibility on those individual merchants to be open and to be engaged and participate and learn and find out how they can be competitive. No one can force them to do that, but there still is room for small retailers in the world in small downtowns. Yeah. So that's good news.
Thank you, that's helpful. Yeah. Any other questions? We could probably engage you all night.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being here in person, and we appreciate the accreditation.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Anything else, Barry?
No, you'll hear more from me later.
Okay, very good. And our final presentation is by the Executive Director of Affirmations, Liliana Reyes, who was very involved in our Pride celebration last weekend. And then I know you were also busy in Detroit this past weekend, so you've been a busy lady.
Just a little.
Good evening.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is, again, Liliana Angel Reyes. I'm the Interim Executive Director of Affirmations. Just so people know, Affirmations is the largest LGBT community center in Michigan and one of 10 top largest in the country, and it is housed in the heart of downtown Ferndale. So some of the things that we've done is Affirmations believes in investing in the neighborhood that we're in, and so we work very closely over the past couple of weeks with the Ferndale firefighters. We did a 12-hour diversity and inclusion training with them. We also recently, like a couple of days ago, worked with Ferndale Police Department to host an ALPACT meeting, which are a group of citizens and organizations that get together to talk about police interactions with the community. And so there were some really cool new people that Affirmations has never had. We had over 2,000 people that came through our center during Ferndale Pride, and so we're really excited about that. Lots of families, lots of really amazing things. Affirmations also recently donated, along with lots of even Ferndale businesses and Ferndale Pride and Julia Music, 700 gallons of water to Flint. And so we worked with Michigan Blood, Chase, Bank of Ann Arbor, Trans Sisters of Color, M1, and they all donated many, many hundreds of cases that we went up there. There's also 2 more water drops in July and in August, because August is another Trans Pride in the Park in Ferndale. And so we'll be doing some more water drops there. We also, again, support local businesses. So we are working very closely with Axel Brewery, who celebrated their first year and started off Pride with us. So they also have some things going on. So if you're a beer drinker, drink the 14th Amendment. We also get a little bit of cut from that. But definitely, our doors are always open. At least it seems that way. We're open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for anything and anyone. So come in, and we would love to see most of you. Or if you want flags, buy flags from us too.
Oh,
So,
okay.
thank you.
Have you noticed we got a lot of flags going on
Yes,
now?
we do, and it's so beautiful.
Right?
It is. I feel like Rosie's is the biggest flag, but they have one that the whole building.
Thank
So
you.
go Rosie's.
All right.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Liliana?
I don't have any question. I'll just, unabashedly, I'm a fan of yours in the short time that you've been in this role.
Thank you.
I've run into you in a bunch of different venues, and I just think you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
And
That means a
representing
lot.
well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You are definitely visible.
Thank
which
you.
is good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I would point out, one of the other things you didn't mention that Affirmations has been really helpful with is, and I don't think I see Michael Larry in the audience, but as we've worked to improve our HRC score, which was actually fairly dismal 8 years ago, and now we're close to 100.
It's
I
100,
don't think
we're
we
hoping.
got to 100, but we're close, and maybe we'll hit it this year or next. But you guys have been a great partner in
Thank you.
helping us do that, and
Thank
so
you.
we appreciate all the support and partnership that you've given us
Thank you
with
so
that as
much.
well.
We
Yeah.
love you all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that concludes our presentation this evening. The next item of business would be call to audience. This is your opportunity, if you're here in the audience, to address council on anything that you'd like that's not on the agenda, because you'll get an opportunity to speak to those things when we get to that portion of the agenda. So if there's anything that you would like to talk to council about that's not on the agenda, come on up to this podium, give us your name, your address. You get 3 minutes to say whatever you would like to say, but be civil. That's all we ask.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sharon Paul. I live at 349 West Saratoga.
Okay.
And I am here tonight to speak again regarding the parking structure for Troy. And at the planning committee meeting last week, it became very apparent to me as I continued to do the math in my head, and I'm actually very good at math. The project developer indicated that the proposed need for parking for that structure for the businesses was 1 parking space for every 100 square feet of office space. And as I left the planning meeting, they had voted to recommend to the city council that the proposal be for 40,000 square feet of business space, which to me equals 400 parking spaces. Since I understood that the number of parking spaces that are going to be allotted on the current proposal was 400, it seems to me that the original intent of creating a parking space is actually entirely obliterated by the actual need that there would be for 40,000 square feet of office space. I have reviewed this several times, and it doesn't seem to me that the current proposal in any way is going to result in a net increase of parking spaces that would warrant the cost. And I just need to say that because I listened to this multiple times and it still is not, doesn't sound like the math works.
It's fair enough, and I would just also invite you, Joe Gauschow is our Assistant City Manager, and if you guys wanted to exchange numbers, he does do math very well, better than me, and there are numbers that he could at least walk you through, whether you agree or not is, obviously you're up to you, but he can walk you through at least our rationale for those numbers, and maybe that would help.
Right, but the, last week at the planning meeting, they actually had on the, what they're calling the PUD Slim, was 20,000 square feet of retail, or excuse me, of the office space.
Right.
And I believe that the reason why that was scaled back to 20,000 was actually to make sure that there would be sufficient parking. But then the planning committee went ahead and requested that it still be 400 or 40,000.
That wasn't actually the reason it was scaled back.
But if I may, through the chair, there was actually action that the 20,000 that was brought to the planning commission, some planning commissioners, and I had abstained from this, but did feel and pushed the recommendation to council, and it's only a recommendation, that we not abandon the original 40,000 number. So that's another point for us to consider in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jake Cunningham. I live at 246 Withington Street, and I'm just here to say, as a member of this community, this lovely Ferndale community, I'm aiming to better serve our community by running for an open seat on the Oakland County Circuit Court bench this year. There's 2 open seats. They'll both be assigned to the family division. The only candidate running that has actual family court experience, and I'm looking forward to serving our community in that greater capacity.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I'll be on the November ballot. And I'd also like to say, I'd like to thank the City Council for their support of Pride Month. As a member of this community, I think that was an excellent move, and congratulations to the city on a great Pride 2 weekends ago. It was fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address council this evening? All right, seeing none, we will move on now to a public hearing. We have a public hearing this evening on a residential ordinance amendments for porches, pools, projections, and fences. And Justin, you're going to introduce that item?
Yes, good evening.
Excellent.
So I was trying to figure out the best way to categorize all of these ordinance amendments, but essentially,
Kind of did it.
there are 5 motions for you to 4 motions for you to consider. I'll kind of go through each to topic area, but staff is always kind of keeping a list of ordinances that seem inconsistent or perhaps could use an update. A lot of that is rooted in the master plan. Much of the master plan really focused on, housing, different housing types, affordability, things of that nature. And so aside from some general inconsistencies that we would like to update, this also, I think, helps with some of that. So initially, we were looking at projections into front yards and architectural features as a section in the ordinance. Not the most exciting feature in the section of the ordinance, but there's some clarity that we needed to seek as far as there's a separate listing for some items like bay windows and chimneys that essentially are consolidated here to eliminate some confusion. We have been talking a lot throughout the Planning Commission staff and the Board of Zoning Appeals about home additions and front porches. And so right now in the zoning ordinance, front porches are included in lot coverage. And there's really no difference in the zoning ordinance between enclosed front porches, which essentially are a room, versus a front porch that is open to the air or just has steps. So staff is seeking to remove front porches from lot coverage because in some of our smaller lots throughout the city, that really does hamper the way homes are designed. Mayor Pro Tem can probably attest to this. Between front porches and home additions, we've seen a few requests lately where folks would like to stay in Ferndale, add on to their home. They're a growing family, and some of these things have limited them from doing so in the past. So the BZA has had to think long and hard about some variance requests that they've had to turn down. Continuing with front porches, setbacks are always a conversation when we're looking at new home development and additions to homes. And as I was saying, front porches, there's no difference in the zoning ordinance between enclosures and not. So we would like to differentiate in those two sections of the ordinance there, as well as looking at projections into the front yard. So currently, if you're building a new home in Ferndale or adding onto your home, the listed front setback in the zoning ordinance is 25 feet, essentially for most single-family homes. That almost is never enacted because of our small lots, and there's a footnote in the zoning ordinance that basically clarifies that you should be having, if you're building a home, it needs to align with the rest of the homes on the street. But this also does prevent unenclosed front porches to be built. So we're seeking to change the projection, and there's actually a sketch in the ordinance now that clarifies where those projections are, which we think might help as we receive more building permits for new homes and just additions in general. Along with additions, we recently updated a side yard setback for garages and accessory structures that the building code currently allows for a 3-foot setback if there is fire-rated construction. Council recently approved that amendment, and we're seeking a similar amendment for residential homes, not if you were to build a new home or add an addition onto the back of your house, but if you are seeking to add a second floor above a structure that is closer than 5 feet, but no more than 3 feet. If you add fire-rated construction to both of those structures, then that would allow you to do so. We've seen a couple of requests like that at the BZA level recently. We also wanted to see some clarity. A lot of our lot sizes are very small. Lot widths are 40, 45 feet, so not huge, but open space is still something that's a priority for the sustainability of the city and important, providing private green space for folks. And so we wanted to seek some clarity on the impervious surfaces chart. There's some confusion conflict between impervious surfaces in the residential districts ordinance versus what is, there's a separate section that defines minimum open space of at least 40%. And that has caused a bit of confusion when we've seen some building plans submit recently. The other two, they just seem to fit the rest of these ordinances here, so I wanted to consolidate. But fences, we've talked quite a bit about over the past few years. There is not a fence permit required by the city right now. That has caused a little bit of confusion in that sometimes we've seen homes with fences that are higher than ordinance permits, or perhaps on a corner lot where they shouldn't be, and those have been pretty tough conversations to have with residents, and that you may have to tear this out. One thing that we saw that would be an easy fix and is a bit more consistent, I think, with homes. You're allowed to have a 6-foot tall fence everywhere but along the front of the house. And so there, right now, you're only allowed to have 4 feet. This would update to 6 feet, which is more in alignment with, I think, what is standard with most fence companies, and we've had at least one BZA request for that height. And then lastly, an ordinance that I'm not sure it's really been enforced over the years, but we wanted to kind of just bring this up to date and seek some clarity. The accessory buildings ordinance does require 25 feet between accessory structures. What's interesting is that I think the intent of that was to separate so someone doesn't have 2 garages on their property, but it also includes swimming pools, and so I think any home that has a swimming pool in Ferndale would be very tough for them to have 25 feet between a pool and a garage. So this would seek to clarify exempting pools from that 25-foot requirement, and should be no less than 3 feet from a garage or shed or accessory structure. So that is probably the fastest I could go through all of those different items, so I'm happy to answer any questions, but.
Not yet, because this is a public comment, and
Right.
because this is such a riveting topic, I'm sure there's going to be dozens of people that want to address us on this. This is your opportunity now. This is a public hearing. So I would like to open the public hearing now and ask if there's anyone here that would like to address council on the proposed changes as described by Justin Lyons.
Bless you.
They weren't all here for this, Justin.
Don't rush.
I'm not. A topic only a planner could love, but I appreciate the details. So nobody that wants to address council on this topic. All right. So I will close the public comment and now open it up to my colleagues for any comments or questions or motions that you would like to make.
Just a comment as a liaison to the Planning Commission, we did have robust discussion of these topics. But overall, Justin and team did a great job, and we were supportive of the changes.
Okay.
Through the chair, I have a question for Justin. Usually when these types of zoning ordinance come shortly after a master plan update, it's to address a pipeline of people going to the ZBA for variances. And I was wondering, can you give us an idea of how many applicants have we had to the ZBA to go and address these things? So this is solving, pressure on our ordinance that's not working for our residents.
Sure. Probably only 5, across these, there was probably, all these ordinances, there were probably only 5 to 6 that actually went to application. Between the building official and myself, the conversations that we had that effectively said, this would very unlikely be a hardship. That number, I would say, would probably be more in the 40 to, 45 range, just since our new building official's been around, but, a lot of pool questions more recently, I would say, with the warm weather, but.
And if I may, as a representative of the BCA, the last several applicants we've had to deny because none of them could prove a hardship. We understood their situation, but they didn't meet the criteria.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think if these are all adopted, I don't know if the BZA will ever meet again. Because most of the things that we've been meeting on are, except for the pools, have been these items.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We will still keep you busy over the next few months.
Oh, I'm sure we are. We always have signs.
Right.
And you don't get paid by the meeting, so
Yeah.
it all washes out. Okay.
Through the chair, there will
Yes.
be quite a few happy kids because of that 25-foot ordinance being scaled down to 3, particularly mine, because we would have had to take ours down. So that's quite a distance, 25 feet.
Right.
So, with such small
In Ferndale.
lots,
Yeah.
land plots.
I'd like to move that City Council approve the amendment to Article 3 residential districts after public hearing June 11th, 2018, as summarized by the findings in the packet.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Polika. That's the first motion, right?
Correct, therefore.
All right. Is there any discussion? Marty, would you call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
Council members Leaks May?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to move the city, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I don't know, do you want to tag team on this?
Yeah, go
I
for it.
move that the city council approve the amendments to fences, section 24-189, after public hearing on June 11th, 2018, as summarized below, with the following findings.
Support.
Moved by Piana and supported by Polika. Any discussion on that motion? Marnie, would you call the roll?
Council members Leaks May?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember Piana?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That is adopted.
I'd like to move that city council approve the amendment of projection into yards, section 24-193, article 9, general provisions, after public hearing on June 11th, 2018, and summarized with the findings in the packet.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Polika. Any discussion? Marnie?
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yep.
Councilmembers Piana?
Yes.
And Leaks May?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you.
Well, give me the pool. Give me the pool. Let me look up.
Here are your kids.
Okay.
All right.
I move that the city council approve the amendment to the accessory building structures and uses of section 24-183, article 9, general provisions, after a public hearing on June 11th, as summarized below with the following findings.
Support.
Moved by Leaks May and supported by Polika. Any discussion? All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Piana?
Yes.
Leaks May?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. Moving on now to the consent agenda. Consent agenda are items that we enact in one motion unless someone from council removes one of the items from the consent agenda. There will be an opportunity to speak to these items, but let me read them first now. Item E? Is that a mistake?
Yes.
It's a mistake. That should
Well,
be,
it should be E.
it should be
It should
E.
be in,
Yes,
it should be in E order. It's-
Yes.
I
It is
gotcha.
ordered.
All right,
Got
but we'll,
jumped around.
okay.
My
So item
apologies.
E, which should be a E, but it is approval of the Chariot Shuttle Services Agreement as submitted by the Assistant City Manager. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting held May 14th, 2018, and the special council meeting that was held May 23rd, 2018, and June 4th, 2018. Item B is the approval to pay the Michigan Municipal League dues totaling $8,410 for fiscal year 2018-19, charged to the city council membership and dues account. Item C is the approval of passport parking agreement update. Item D is the approval of the dog park access upgrade. Item F is the adoption of a condolence resolution for Richard Botrell. Item G is an adoption of a condolence resolution for Nancy Lennon. Item H is the approval of the recruitment for customer service rep fire specialist. Item I is the approval of the recruitment for program specialist for recreation. Item J is the approval of the SEMCOG traffic safety program assistance application. Item K is the approval to amend Chapter 7 Business Regulation and Licenses General, Article 20 of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances as submitted by the city planner. Item L is the approval of poverty exemption guidelines as submitted by our finance director. Item M is the approval of the summer 2018 special assessments to the tax roll as submitted by the finance director. Item N is the approval of the annual financial audit fiscal year ending 2018. Item O is the approval of the MDNR RTF Development Project Agreement and Resolution for Geary Park Improvements. Item P is the approval of the MNRTF Development Project Agreement and Resolution for Wanda Park Improvements. Item Q is the approval of the execution of the declaration and notice documents for Martin Road Park and Harding Park. Item R is the approval of the emergency repair of unleaded fuel tank as submitted by our interim director of public works. Item S is the approval of the downtown pavement marking retracing by PK Contracting. Item T is the approval to purchase a Ventrac machine with attachments. Item U is the approval of the DPW lease vehicle replacement, that being a Ford F-550. And finally, item V is the approval of the bills and payroll as submitted by the city manager's office and subject to review by the council finance committee. What is council's pleasure on the consent agenda this evening?
Through the chair?
Yes.
I would like to move item 7E, Chariot Shuttle Services, to the regular agenda for reasons I will explain at that time.
Yes.
I have questions of clarification and a request.
Yes.
Which do I, both?
No, questions of clarification are appropriate now.
Sure, so with regards, this is probably for Cheryl, for the poverty exemption standards. In the calculation on your referral of assets, it's not net assets according to this documentation. Why don't we consider, I know we remove vehicle and housing out of the calculation, but why don't we subtract other liabilities from existing assets? Sorry. Really? Because I'm springing this on you.
Got her notes, trust me.
All right,
We had questions on this last year. She was ready.
I know.
So I included the state law with the packet. There is some specifics in the state law about what you can and cannot exclude for the assets. And then the other thing I did is I did like an informal survey of all the communities around, and everybody's kind of got their own way of calculating the assets and things like that. But almost all of them remove the house and the vehicles from the calculation.
No, and I don't have a problem with the house or the vehicles or a question, but when I think of assets, I think of net assets. So let's say I had $10,000 in the bank, 5,000 in debt, unrelated to property. Why wouldn't my assets be calculated as 5,000 as opposed to 10,000? In the way this is worded, you take the higher number.
I can look at that. I honestly don't know why we don't net it. I think if we did, we could make the asset test 5,000 and everybody would hit it, so.
Okay. If you could just look at that at some
I
point,
will.
I'd appreciate it. My second question and last related to this is, under the poverty exemption determination standards, the fourth bullet down, it says, the poverty exemption shall not be granted to an applicant with cash on deposit in excess of the proposed tax obligation for the ensuing year. Isn't that contradictory to what we're saying at that $15,000 threshold? So let's say I have $3,000 in the bank, which covers my past due taxes, but I'm well under that $15,000 for the poverty exemption guidelines. According to that bullet, we wouldn't grant a poverty exemption because you're sitting on $3,000 cash unless you can relate it back to living expenses.
And that's correct. Some communities actually single out the cash or liquid assets and have a cap for that. And then have the assets, which are physical assets that are not so easy to convert into cash, as a separate recommendation, or like a separate issue to look at. So if there was an issue like that where someone possibly had the cash but not the assets, if they met the asset test but not the cash test, then the Board of Review would have the ability to give them a 50% reduction. They can always reduce it by percentages.
Well, it would be more likely that I'd pass the cash test, but not the, I guess we're saying the same thing. I'm sorry, now that I talked it through. Okay. All right, that makes more sense. It just seemed rather contradictory to me, so.
I think because they do two different things, because if you've got $20,000 in the bank and you say, well, I can't pay my taxes, if it's just $20,000 sitting in the bank, you probably can pay your taxes.
Yeah, but I'd be more concerned with, I've got $3,000 sitting in the bank, but my my assets are under $15,000. My tax bill is $3,000. Why would, according to this, I could wipe out their cash to pay their taxes, and where they would have met the poverty guidelines under their total assets?
Well, on the spreadsheet, you do list your liabilities and stuff, so I think they look at that as well.
Okay, so it's consideration per the guideline of the committee?
Yes.
Essentially, okay.
Yes.
All right, thanks. And then my second issue is, not issue, but question is, we've got item K here, which is a result, and I think what a lot of people are here for, with regards to the change in the personal regulation and licenses. And that, the proposal in the packet is as a result of a work session. I don't know that I necessarily would want to pull that from consent agenda, but I think it would behoove everyone to let the city attorney talk about the changes, what that represents, what we did at the work session, and what's before us today, if that's amenable to the chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan, would you be prepared to do that?
Your Honor, would you care for me to do that at this point right now?
Yeah.
Okay, as council recalls and a lot of the audience recalls, council has considered and passed zoning ordinances with respect to medical marijuana back at its May 21st meeting. It then had a workshop last Monday on June 4th to discuss various modifications or proposed modifications to the regulatory ordinance that it wished to consider as it relates to implementation of the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, specifically as it relates to the permit process associated with an applicant to the city as to whether or not they would be required to first have the state-issued operating license prior to getting the permit from the city, or some lesser level of determination as it relates to financial wherewithal, criminal background, and other aspects of an applicant's background that are reviewed by the state. And council determined that it did wish for that lesser level of financial obligation as far as an expenditure, and did not want an applicant to actually have to build out the facility in order to have the permit from the city. And so the proposed regulatory ordinance scheme that was discussed at the workshop still has the potential for 3 provisioning centers, but it would provide that a applicant that has obtained the pre-qualification from the state with evidence of that, written proof of that, that issuance of that step 1 pre-qualification would be able to apply to the city. And the city would consider that along with a zoning compliance permit, which would essentially look to the zone district that the applicant was proposing to establish a provisioning center and make sure that it's consistent with the city's zoning ordinance, and further, that it would be consistent with the city's distance requirements from other types of particular uses, daycare facilities, other medical marijuana facilities. And so the city would be considering and willing, and as proposed this evening, would be willing to accept applications with that pre-qualification proof, zoning compliance permit, on a first-come basis after the effective date of the ordinance. And the draft before you this evening proposes that the effective date would be Wednesday morning, which is the 13th, at 8:00 a.m. It would be the expectation that the ordinance would be published for the Wednesday paper of general circulation that the city utilizes, which is the Tribune. And the other changes of note that council wished to see with respect to the draft included that in the event that one of, as everybody knows, the 3 proposed provisioning centers is the limit at this point in time, subject to a evaluation by council after 6 months of one of those provisioning centers being operated. In the event that one of those 3 permittees from the city is not able to achieve these and get a state operating license within a 9-month period of time, and in the event that the city does not provide an extension to that permit, then it would be void, and the next applicant that was timely completed and timely filed with the city clerk would be the next permittee issued. So rather than the initial draft that was considered at the workshop, which had a random selection for those that were that had submitted to the city, it would be in the next order or process. So if, for example, if 3 initially were issued and the first one was not able to get the state license, the 4th one would then receive a permit and then would have a 9-month period of time in which to secure a license. A couple of other minor, important changes, but of a more minor basis would be the issue that no applicant would be able to pursue more than 1 provisioning center. And also clarification that no stockholder, partner, or manager of an applicant would be able to have an interest of greater than 1% of any other provisioning center. And that was to address a concern that that one particular applicant would seek to secure all of the permits that the city may issue.
Within the city, not.
Within the city of Ferndale.
Not
Within
other than
within the
state.
city of Ferndale.
Yeah.
I believe that is it, except for, just to highlight again, rather than effective on publication, there is a specific date and time proposed in this text, which would be on June 13th at 8 a.m.
Gotcha. All right.
Thank you.
And there will be an opportunity for those of you who are here to address council. Are there any other questions of clarification on the consent agenda? All right, then a motion would be in order.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended by Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Leaks May. Now, this is your opportunity, if there's anyone here that would like to address council on any item on the consent agenda, this would be your opportunity to do so now. Again, with the same rules. Come on up, give us your name. 3 minutes.
If I could, through
Yeah.
the chair, there was also one typographical error on page 3, subpart 3, the word randomly was in there that was supposed to be eliminated.
Oh.
And that should be eliminated.
So, Councilman Martin, would you amend your
Yeah, I'll
motion?
accept the change.
And Councilwoman Leaks May?
Support the change.
All right. I thought you explained it so well, they didn't
And then I-
need to address it, but come on up, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Daniel Cortez on behalf of my client, Live Wellness, over at 2625 Hilton Road. Just want to say a few things and begin by thanking the council for their thoroughness and their consideration. I think everybody here who's in the audience, no matter where you are in the spectrum of stakeholding, you have an interest in doing this in the best way possible, with the primary concern being the safety and security of everybody involved. That's the business owners, the residents of the city. And I think that the council, with what they have before them, is on the right track with respect to step 1, and having the state go through and have that process done by the state of Michigan, having all the information as far as fingerprinting and background checks and financial information and things like that. I think that's brought out by Justin's report here tonight. But from our perspective, there's a lot more value to be had in also having that step 2 approval from the state of Michigan as well. And the reasons are many. That step addresses information about the business, their business plan. Do they have the startup capital? Do they have capital to make it through a certain period of time once the business has begun? Their marketing plan. The step 2 requires also very specific information about where are your security cameras? Do you have the proper security cameras? Are you recording appropriately? Are you interacting with local police and fire officials appropriately? It's a lot of information that I think the city would be well-served to have before they start giving licenses to applicants for provisioning centers or for the security facility. The other aspect of this is that we've already seen this happening, so I know I'm not speculating, that persons who have already received step 1 approval are essentially raffling off that approval to other entities in the city, saying, if you give me a part of your entity, I will let you get to the front of the line for Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. That would lead to new business entities formed on the evening of Tuesday, June 12th, getting to the front of the line on the morning of June 13th. And then we have a different business entity with new partners involved, new relationships, new details trying to figure it out while they're getting ready to apply to the city of Ferndale. I don't think that's what the intention of the city would be. I think you want to have a more thorough process. And with that in mind, I think we would encourage the consideration of having step 2 approval from the state. And as a final point, in speaking to the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation just last week, you need not have a C of O prior to starting and submitting that step 2 application to the state of Michigan. I just want to make that point abundantly clear. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Thank you, but don't go too far. Dan, could you clarify that? Because I thought the purpose of not requiring this step 2 was because of the burden of having to have the.
The prior text was not step 2, it was actually the state-issued license, which requires the certificate of occupancy. For the state-issued license, it requires it to be built out. He's talking not about the state-issued license.
To be clear, what I'm speaking toward, Mr. Mayor, was the fact that you can submit your step 2 materials for review by the state with the zoning approval and the attestation from the city clerk saying that you guys have opted in, here's a copy of our ordinance. They can review all of those documents, the business plan, the marketing plan, the security plan, the tech plan, making sure you're in compliance with state regulations in every capacity possible. That information could be before you are deciding who is the appropriate entity or person to be getting a City of Ferndale license. That is why we believe step 2 materials will be before you. That would be best for all of the stakeholders, whether that's a business, the City of Ferndale, and its residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address council this evening on the consent agenda? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Phillips. My brother, Justin Sabaugh, and I own 1915 East 9 Mile. We've been to every council meeting or workshop and have been in constant contact with either Justin Lyons or previously Derek Dallencourt, amongst other people. And normally we are here to observe and take guidance from what the council decides and adapt accordingly. That pattern of behavior has gone on for almost half a decade now. Today, I feel compelled to express myself and me and my brother's collective perspective. Roughly 5 years ago, my brother and I decided that we wanted to pursue our dream of opening a store where patients could safely access medical marijuana. This dream began because we both had witnessed and experienced the benefits of marijuana as an alternative to conventional medicine. We've seen marijuana in all of its forms prolong life, save life, or at a minimum, make life a little more tolerable and more comfortable and healthier. So we bought what used to be Morganti's liquor store because it adhered to your zoning restrictions. It was not a nice place, to say the least. If any of you remember, some of you may recall that me and my brother were the first caregiver center in this city. We were the first to obtain a certificate of occupancy. We were the first to open our doors. We've always been and will be accepting and tolerant of your rules and restrictions and the city's wishes. I personally have met with your former chief of police, Collins, and whomever he decided to bring with him, whether it was a lieutenant or a detective or an undercover officer, countless times. I've been subject to random inspections and interrogative conversations and what I would consider to be somewhat threatening conversations. I've been told by Chief Collins that my brother and I have targets on our backs and that we should be careful not only in Ferndale but also in Oakland County as a whole. This county is where we were born. We were told that we were being watched by not only your police but Oakland County sheriffs, yet we have remained resilient and determined and law-abiding. We have not only paid taxes over the years, we also had to construct the interior of our building to meet the requirements of the previous ordinance with complete acknowledgement that we were going to have to tear it down upon the new ordinance and start over. We're not men of great means. We're a modest family. We don't have unlimited funds. We actually have a family history in the medical industry. My brother owns and operates a nursing agency, a medical transportation company, and a medical supply company. Without reminiscing further, I feel compelled to ask you why it is that you feel the need to determine our fate by constructing a line outside of your building's entrance. I feel that the determination of who gets to operate in this industry within your city should not be left to a race to the front door. It seems to me that the privilege of providing safe access of medical marijuana should be based on merit and commitment to the city and patients. I believe as much work as it may be that candidates should be evaluated based on factors of character, business and build-out plans, financial means to accomplish those plans, amongst other things. I believe you'd be doing your city and your citizens and the patients an injustice by determining who is allowed to operate in your city based on who can pay people to sit outside your front door the longest. I say that in acknowledgement that my volunteers and my family, myself, my pregnant fiance have sat outside your doors since Friday afternoon. Yet another amongst many hoops that we have.
You're at your 3 minutes.
I'm
cut
almost
you off,
done.
but if
I
you
really
could-
am
yep,
almost done.
Thank you.
It's just another hoop that we've jumped through over the past 5 years. And whether we are able to acquire your blessing on opening our store, I believe this process should be based on merit and not a foot race with a timestamp. I believe that the most qualified candidates should earn the privilege of providing safe access within the great city of Ferndale, not the fastest to the clerk's desk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to address council this evening on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I would like to just, read, if you don't mind, I guess it is item G, which is the condolence, resolution honoring Nancy Lennon. All of us know Nancy Lennon. She's an institution in this town, and she recently made her transition, and I'd like to read the resolution, if you don't mind. So at a regular meeting of the City Council, Mayor David Coulter, on behalf of the Ferndale City Council, extends the city's condolences to the family of Nancy Lennon. Nancy Lennon was an integral member of our community. She really was, in many ways, the matriarch of the Lennon family. Her husband, Bernard, also known as Bernie, served as mayor, and her sons, David and Michael, both served as city council members. Nancy Lennon was a credit to her family and to our community, and it is with deep sorrow that we honor, that we mourn her loss. Thank you for allowing me to read that. Any other discussion on the consent agenda by council? No. We've done the public portion. All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Piana,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on now to the regular agenda. Item A is the consideration of an appointment, the appointment of Heather Cutlip to the DDA. And I don't know, I see Barry here. I don't know if Heather's here or not. I don't see her.
Yes,
Is she-
actually, yeah, I wanted to apologize on behalf of Heather. She actually was unable to make it this evening, sends her regrets. She had a previous engagement teaching a chair yoga class to a Parkinson's group this evening, which is actually kind of one of the things that I think speaks to her character. You know, I had the privilege of sitting down with her and our vice chair, Jackie Smith, to have a conversation at Red Hook a few weeks ago about why she started her business here and, you know, what Ferndale kind of meant to her. And, you know, we both agreed, we thought that she would be an excellent addition to the DDA board. Let me just give you a few highlights about Heather. Again, I'm speaking on her behalf. I'm sure she could do a much better job representing herself than I can. But she is the owner of the Little Lotus Wellness Studio at 195 West 9 Mile, which is in the Ferndale Arts Building, as well as Heather Ray Inc. And they offer massage and energy work, yoga, meditation, wellness workshops, and women's empowerment classes. She's been in business in Ferndale for 4 years now. And before starting her own business, she had extensive experience managing other businesses, such as restaurants with large staff, detailed accounting practices and those sort of things, inventory and that kind of stuff. So she kind of brings her knowledge from that world into the world that she's working in right now. She's also dedicated to the community and helping out in any way she can throughout Metro Detroit. For example, one of the things she's doing right now is working with a medical team at Wayne State University to study the effects of mood disorders and how meditation may be able to play into that or help. She's also the co-founder of the Southeast Michigan's Holistic Professional Networking Group. So Heather has a lot of great accomplishments. I think she brings a different dynamic to the DDA board, which is great. We have a lot of health and wellness businesses in our downtown, and it would be great to have a representative from that community helping us out on the board. She's passionate about the community, and she'd like to get more involved. Some of her interests include some of the art and special events that the DDA actually holds, which kind of attracted her to us in the first place. So that is my summary, and speaking on her behalf, like I said, again, she sends her apologies. She could not be here tonight.
Thank you, Barry. And I would just add that this is a mayoral appointment with approval of council, which we've mentioned a number of times, and I'm certainly supportive of this appointment. Are there questions or a motion? Questions of clarification or a motion, and then we can get to discussion if we like.
No, please just pass on our gratitude for Heather's willingness to serve.
Absolutely, yep.
Does that mean you want to make a motion?
Sure, I can. I would move that we confirm the appointment of Heather Cutlip to the Downtown Development Authority for a term ending December 31st, 2021.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Leaks May. Now, any discussion? All right. Hearing none. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Leaks May,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika,
Yes.
Councilmember Piana,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Barry, for finding us a great candidate.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'll let her know. Thank you.
Good deal. Appreciate it. Item B is a consideration to award bid to WCI contractors to renovate and improve the baseball field at Harding and Wanda Parks utilizing CDBG and park bond funds as submitted by the woman at the podium, Lorena Wheeler. Lorena, good evening.
Good evening.
Do you want to introduce that item, please?
Yes, so we received approximately $144,000 from CDBG for improvements at several parks, and we selected Wanda and Harding baseball diamonds to start. We publicly bidded the work for those items, and we actually got two contractors that submitted a bid, and the lowest was WCI, who we would like to utilize for this grant. And the remaining funding outside of CDBG will be used from the park bond to complete the project.
And that's the $49,000 figure, the
Yes.
remainder? Yeah. Are there questions or a motion?
I move that City Council approves the proposed bid recommendation to allow WCI contractors to renovate and improve the baseball field at Harding and Wanda Parks utilizing CDBG and park bond funds as recommended by Parks and Rec Director.
Support.
Moved by Piana and supported by Polika. Now, discussion, comments, questions?
I have questions, if I may, through the chair. So I know WCI was the lowest bid, but have they done this before? Like, what's their background? I couldn't find much information on them.
They were actually recommended by our engineer, Griffiths Webster, and I believe they have done work for the city before, but they were recommended by them.
They built the ball diamond before?
Both have experience with ball diamonds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments?
I wouldn't know if it's wrong.
All right, Marty, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika,
Yes.
Councilmembers Piana,
Yes.
and Leaks May,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted, and I think Lorena's is the next one as well, and that is a consideration to apply for the Tony Hawk Foundation Built to Play Skate Park Grant.
Yes.
Submitted by you.
That's right. So, as we know, last year, the council approved the skate park at Wilson Park, as well as it's in the master plan. However, at that time, it was for a prefabricated skate park, and so we rescinded it because of, a lot of input that we got from the community, and, actually, a concrete skate park would be better. So, at this time, we are picking up the momentum on that project. And it just so happened it was right around the time that this grant became available. So we would like permission to, or support to, get, well, approval to apply for this grant. And they matched funds up to $250,000. Previously, funding through council was awarded for approximately $350,000.
And just to clarify, are the design issues settled on the skate park as opposed to, or does that get completed down the road? I understand there were some varying opinions on what a design of a skate park looks like.
Yes, so that's gonna be further down in the road, but we will not be doing prefabricated. It will be a concrete skate park.
But my understanding is you're gonna do kind of a community input process, that was explained to me, where you'll be soliciting ideas from the skating community and others.
Exactly. We are putting together a advisory board now, that we actually have commitments from several individuals within the community who have a vested interest and excited to be part of this process. And this grant is big on community input, so we would definitely be
When
involved
would
in
we
it.
hear, by the way? When would we hear on this grant?
It'll be in August.
In August, okay, so pretty quickly.
Through the chair, on your advisory board, and the name of the store escapes me, but there's a relatively new skater retail store downtown Ferndale, maybe 6 months old. Have we included them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Through the chair, I was wondering if we have informed Robertson Brothers that a skate park is coming there and that they are informing their new people that they are selling homes to, that a skate park will be there, particularly the Edge houses.
Yeah, we have not yet. We're at the very beginning stages, but we do plan on doing that.
Okay.
Good idea. So a motion would be in order. Before we have further discussion.
I move that the city council approves the submission of a Tony Hawk Foundation built to play grant application prepared by the Parks and Rec Department, and matching funds from the park bond be up to $358,586 as recommended by the Parks and Rec Director.
Support.
Moved by Leesman, supported by Martin. Now, further comments, questions, or discussion?
Just a question, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Brad. Well, perhaps I misheard you. Can you explain the $358,000 number? I thought you quoted the match on our end was less than that.
So, the $350,000 is what was approved when it was a prefabricated skate park. It was
I see.
$250 for the skate park and about $108,000 for the concrete pad. So that's where that figure came from. But the grant itself will only match up to $250,000.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, I just want to go on record as someone who lives in the neighborhood. I and many other residents are not a fan of the skate park going into Wilson Park. However, I am going to pick my battles, and this isn't one of them.
Or take up skating.
I will literally pay a significant amount of money if you
Oh,
will take
no,
up
I
skating.
cracked my butt
skating.
once stating,
All right.
I had to watch my word on that, too.
Other comments or questions on this item? Before we get into bad places. All right, Marty, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Piana,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes.
Don't pout.
Thank you. And thank you, Lorena.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the regular agenda is item D, the consideration of recommendation to exercise the right of first refusal on a tax foreclosed property as submitted by this gentleman, our Community and Economic Development Director.
Evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you very much. Yes, this is essentially, we wanted to bring this to you, and we apologize for the lack of notice. It's typically a very, very tight time frame. So we, each year, as you know, there's a foreclosure auction that happens at the county level for tax reverted properties that have been tax reverted for a period of 3 years. So before the auction process begins, there is a redemption period where these properties essentially get notified in February. The owners get notified in February that, hey, you're subject to foreclosure. These properties will go to auction if you do not redeem. That period of time goes from their notice, which is about Valentine's Day, which is maybe ironically timed, but they have till about April 2nd to redeem. That window closes April 2nd. We got a notification from the county on the 21st with a deadline of the 25th to say if we wanted to exercise that right of first refusal, which essentially means we can pluck those properties out of the list before they go to auction. CED senses an opportunity for several different strategic opportunities on these 4 properties that you see before you. Essentially, and you can see in your packet the details and locations, and we can go into that if you have questions. Essentially what CED is proposing, knowing that we haven't had the time for full due diligence, we obviously plan on doing a much deeper dive before we move on any of these following purchase. But I had my code team look in and give you some preliminary details that are in your packet. You can see at least one of those is occupied, and we have sort of 3 ideas that we'd like to pursue for each of these properties as a pilot for what we see as a longer-term strategy for being sort of ready to jump at the gun for these properties every year. So first and foremost, if they're occupied, we want to turn that person into a homeowner. Second, if they're not occupied, we've been talking with the Housing Commission, and we'd like to create a pathway to ownership for the vast waiting list that FHC has of folks who are renters who would like to be owners. And third, if those 2 opportunities aren't viable, strategic land assembly, strategic development. And you can see in the packet that there's a limitation on the city can't profit on these projects. We can get recouped for any investments we make to improve the properties. You can see in the packet the Zestimate, if you will, which isn't admittedly a perfect estimate of value. We would get a more formal estimate of value, considering the time crunch that we had to get these to you. The county was willing to give us an extension to tonight. So any of these, if we wanted to purchase all of these, if we only wanted to purchase some, the county is willing to work with us to allow us to exercise that right. But essentially, we see an opportunity here, one of them being near Harding Park. We see the one that abuts city-owned property on Livernois. 218 Stratford is adjacent to city-owned property at 205 and 235 Livernois. We think there's an opportunity there. And also the property on East Bennett is next to the church at 8 and Woodward. So we think that there's a land assembly opportunity there, possibly a partnership with the church. So essentially what we would offer is an opportunity to experiment with these 4 properties and spend the next 12 months with as close to 100% confidence as I can give you, with knowing that nothing is ever guaranteed. But we are certain that from the CD perspective that the city at a minimum will be made whole on these 4, even if we had to cut bait and dispose of them. So we sort of propose a robust 6 to 8 months of trying to do something creative with these properties. And if we can't do that in that time frame, basically spending the rest of that 12-month window disposing of the properties to make sure the city is made whole. So at a minimum, the city breaks even. If we get lucky, we do something really special with these 4 properties and possibly make some administrative expense, working with Oakland County on that to obviously make sure that we stay within their guardrails of eligibility. But that's the overall. Again, it's a tight time frame. Normally, we'd like to give council a lot more lead time, and we're going to work with the county a lot closer in coming years to get as close of a look at these properties as we can before it comes to this point. But that list is always in flux. You can see a wave of them sort of disappear if they get redeemed. So that's sort of why we're at this point right now. But we want to use this as an initial pilot to have a much more systemic strategy. We had about 10 properties that were foreclosed in Ferndale, so not a huge amount, but enough to do some strategic investments with if we're partnered and we're kind of looking ahead. So I'd be happy to take any questions you have on these properties.
Other questions?
I can certainly say I'm in favor of, wouldn't that be wonderful for the Ferndale Housing Commission to be able to offer housing to a person who'd like to be a homeowner? That would be great.
But, so one is vacant, which is the one you would hope to potentially work with the Ferndale Housing Commission on for affordable housing. The other 3 are occupied. And do I understand you correctly to say your hope is to make those occupants owners?
That's correct. One of the things, admittedly, we didn't have time to do was a full earnest due diligence with those occupants. Now, this was based on field surveys. We didn't sort of knock on the door. We didn't go in and talk to anyone. We just assessed, very similar to what the city of Detroit does with their sort of property assessments. We looked at the condition. Our inspectors went out there and kind of made their best guess in terms of what's going on there. Before we made any kind of move, assuming we had purchased these tonight, we would work with whoever is occupying those structures and get a better sense of how it came to be tax foreclosed. That's the detail the county doesn't provide to us, and work out a solution. But yes, sort of if you look at it, sort of like a 3-tiered approach, the preferred alternative, someone is in there, we do not want them out of that home. We want to create a stable situation for them. As we sort of look at affordable housing and inclusive housing as a city, we see these as opportunities to experiment and pilot. We've been meeting with Community Housing Network, Quicken Loans, and all sorts of other operators in sort of the affordable mortgage space and the eviction prevention, if you will, space. And we want to make that effort here on those 3.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, please.
I'm really supportive of this, but from my experience working in housing, in my current employment in Detroit, that folks who have tax foreclosure issues usually need home buyer education, as well as financial counseling, as well as how to improve their credit scores. So those are some wraparound services that we're going to have to consider if the city is going to become the primary owner of the property in order to help these folks figure out their financial situation in order to buy the home.
And to follow up on that, so we'll be collecting rent from those three?
Well, actually, we do not have a plan in place for that at this time. So admittedly, this is, because of the truncated time frame, we haven't had the time to sort of more formally assemble that strategy. And so we put this forward as an opportunity, obviously knowing that, if council's not comfortable pushing forward on some of these properties without those finer details figured out, that's perfectly understandable. That's something we would obviously, our step one would be to engage the county and the occupants together and get a full read on the situation and put together some of those wraparound services that the councilwoman mentioned. We've been talking to a lot of our partners in that space, and we're confident that we can put that together, but that has not been done yet.
What's the conditions of what's the condition of the homes?
So, again, this is sort of very preliminary, but if you look at the spreadsheet there, as long as it didn't get cut off, very, very sort of subjective. Only one of those properties, which is the one on Goodrich, was sort of our team rated as bad. There's no sort of rating scale on that. That was just a very quick field survey, just kind of taking a look at overall condition. Is there peeling paint? Are there issues with windows, gutters, roof, et cetera? All the others are in what we'll say, quote unquote, okay condition. So none of them are sterling. All of them are going to need some level of work, and the Goodrich property seems to need the most.
So, I'm sorry. So where are the funds coming for those repairs? Is the new landlord or owners, those repairs solidly fall to us? How are we, that's not included in your ask of $74,505, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So where's the ask for the repairs?
So that would come, like this request, that would come from capital. We would do an assessment of the properties, get a full read on the costs, and then we would present this to capital for your consideration.
So I would say, as with Councilwoman Piana, I'm supportive of this, but I want a really short leash on this.
Sure.
Because there's a lot that's not still to be formulated. So as opposed to 6 to 8 months to see what we could do, I'd like to see an update to council monthly at the worst. Okay?
We can definitely do that.
All right.
Jordan, just to clarify, if they approve it tonight, then we can't, our due diligence, we don't have due diligence with the county?
The county's willing to work with us on the trigger pull, and Cheryl and I have been closely working with their team. So if we approve this tonight, we don't necessarily have to pull the trigger tomorrow morning, that we can work that process out with the county, and we'll make sure we give you regular updates. And sort of the exit strategy on the four of these, the reason, normally this is not as fully baked as we would like to bring something to council for consideration. Normally, we're confident enough in the exit strategy that we can dispose of these properties for at least what we paid. If we go and for example, if we go and inspect one of these properties and we find it needs $150,000 in work, we're gonna sell it for what we paid for it. And we'll do the best we can to work with the occupants, but the sort of, I'll say, on par with preference one, which is to help those occupants, on par with that is to make sure the city is made whole and doesn't fall into a money pit that we cannot afford to maintain.
Because the price, just to be clear, the price we're paying is the four on the front that total 74,000?
That's correct.
And then the Zestimate is
That's-
what we think the home in good, decent repair would get in the market?
That's what we think it would get. That's the Zillow estimate of what it would get if it were listed as is today. And that, again, is not a perfect estimate. We would work with, different brokers that work town, like such as Jim Schaefer Associates, et cetera, to get a more accurate read. But again, we can't sort of profit on that. Let's say if we sold it for anywhere above what we pay for it, as you see on the recommendation, that difference goes to the county.
But there's a humanitarian issue to this too, that I don't think is accounted for here. So let's say you go in and it's not just a cut and run as an option. Say you go in and there is a hoarding situation or something that needs social services, or that the resident is at risk. We don't walk away from that either.
That's correct. We would treat it as if we found it in sort of and we've run into this with our code team. If we encounter, we'll get a complaint about blighted appearance, and we'll find as we pull that thread, there's a little bit more to it than blight. We'll find issues like that. So we would work with those occupants to provide those services and we would treat it essentially like any other code violation we found. Just in this situation, we would be the sort of owner of the property.
Through the chair, for further debate. On the one hand, I'm really in favor of this because the county, if they proceeded with the tax foreclosure, would evict the occupants, right? In order to dispose of the property themselves. By us, the city purchasing it, gives a little bit more reprieve to do some home stabilization work with the occupants there to see what sort of support they are. If all those actions fail in the short period of time on the city, then we are just doing, at the end of the day, we'll be taking action like the county would and would be disposing of the occupants for whatever reason. So I go back on the one hand, we are giving the occupants their reprieve now to figure out how to, the city look at how to provide and enhance its home stabilization services of keeping someone in their home. Whereas if we don't do this, they just are removed by the county from these out of these households. Is that my understanding?
Through the chair, just to clarify, the county treasurer's office does not evict. That was sort of what Cheryl was sort of
Okay.
whispering in my ear. So I don't know the exact details on all their services, but they do try to basically prevent that outcome in every way possible. But I would agree that this would create a little bit more of a runway in terms of finding time to dive into the specific context. So the one thing about the process is it's rapid. Once it gets to the point where the auction comes, if that first refusal isn't exercised, basically it churns, and then it goes to the bidder.
I guess my question to that, oh, I'm sorry, unless you were.
Well, one more question. Is there a tax payment plan that the county offers to the occupants? Or they've already gone through this get to this point?
Third year.
Of, right? They're in their third year?
Yeah, they've already gone through been offered the services of a payment plan. If one of these homes was on a payment plan, it would not hit foreclosure, even if it was at 3 years, because the county will work with the residents in a payment plan situation. There are things that might make that payment plan go into default, and then they would come back and go to the auction.
In all fairness, though, there's no guarantee these are the homeowners that are occupants. They could be renters.
Absolutely, and once they're sold by the county,
They would be evicted.
it would be up to the owner to
evict.
But
have
let's
to
be
deal
honest,
with it.
a for-profit developer is going to evict them,
Right.
right?
I would
At
think so.
auction.
But I guess my question on that is, if the county, with their resources and their housing specialists and all that stuff, couldn't help keep these folks in their house, then what makes
Well,
us think that we can?
If
We're
I
Ferndale.
if I can interject, it very well could be owned by someone who is charging a renter who that owner is not paying the bills, is not paying the taxes, and the renter continues to pay their rent, but the owner is not owning up to their responsibility.
It could be many situations.
It could be a lot of
it's-
situations.
And it-
Absolutely.
So, we don't know what the
Right.
situations are, or the tenants that we're taking on, is the only
But,
question I have.
which I go back to is how do you, the long-term goal is the short-term goal is keeping the occupants there if possible, wraparound services, but the long-term goal by buying these properties, my understanding is to see how we can partner with the Housing Commission and/or any of the other parcel owners near or adjacent the properties. For example, with the church on, was it Bennett? On East Bennett.
I would expand upon that. I think the long-term goal is to see if we even have any business being in this business. To me, I look at this as an incubator, and it's innovative, and it's a risk. It could be a colossal pain for Jordan later. But, or for all of us, and I think that, but it's that innovative step we've addressed in our master plan and other things, that this is, let's try it. If it doesn't work, lessons learned. Our risk is somewhat limited in the broader scheme of things. And the residents are gonna be no worse off, in my opinion, based on what's presented, than they would be going over to the county or a for-profit developer. That's my view.
If I may, through the chair, that's is exactly our department's opinion. I mean, we essentially are willing to get our hands dirty to try this, obviously working very closely with City Attorney Dan Christ, providing updates to you, council, and working with the county But, you know, we've looked at Detroit. I mean, they do this with hundreds and thousands every year. It's a challenge. It's not easy, but we believe it's worth the risk on 4 of these. We think that's a manageable risk. We think that if we absolutely had to, obviously being as humane as possible with occupants in those properties, if we had to cut on these properties, we could do so and still try to work with those folks. So we believe it's a calculated risk worth trying, and we think we'll learn a lot from this process to find out, is this something we want to scale up, or do we just pass on that annual love letter from the county in the
Is
future?
it just once a year that we get that letter from the
Once a
county?
year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Through the chair, Jordan, is it possible to have this tabled and will the county give us 2 more weeks to have more answers to our questions, do you think?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay.
If through the chair, if I may, to what end? I mean, at this point, it's a philosophical question whether we want, I mean, I know what you're doing, you're trying to protect our risk, and that's your job.
2 more weeks.
Yeah, for 2 more weeks.
If I may, I would just like more information about the program that we're gonna end up creating. You know, if we're gonna put all this time and effort, I don't want this to be a one-off. Obviously, this is gonna come up next year, and if there's any way that we can work with the county to get that list, maybe as they're developing it, might be helpful to have more time. I have heartburn with the idea that we're going into the landlord business. I hear, you know, there was this whole argument about the Troy Street development and why we shouldn't own the office space because we shouldn't be landlords. But now we're buying property,
I think
you
your
know,
point's well.
to save people from their homes. And I think it's a great, I do think it's a great idea. I just, I'm seeing both sides of the issue, and I have issues with both sides of the issue.
I appreciate your point of view. Through the chair, you know, I work for a nonprofit that provides housing counseling services, and single-family acquisition rehab, which is somewhat where we're treading in as home stabilization. I think for me, it's building the program, it's probably knitting together the resources that exist to provide services, and that's sort of how I take on it. I don't think we would be creating new services out of the air. We would be leveraging partnerships in order to bring it to the homes that we would purchase. Because based off of what I know, what it takes to do wraparound services for a single homeowner is significant time, and so I'm looking at, you know, 4 homes by number of hours, and then I'm more worried about staff capacity in order to manage this properly in a very short period of time. So I would be looking for a confidence statement from you, Jordan, that your team has the ability to do this.
It's not in the master plan, in the strategic plan.
But, you know, affordable housing, I think, is definitely, this fits the affordable housing goals and inclusive housing policies. And I am really appreciative of your creativity in trying to figure this out. And I think this type of housing services is something that we need to definitely take a look at in terms of expanding for our community through your department. But I'm a little worried about staff capacity. We've had this issue before with staff capacity in terms of other creative ideas coming, and so I was just wondering if you could give a comment about that.
I think this is a fair question, and I appreciate it. In basically just being real on that, I think at 4, with staff capacity, if things got rough, that cut and run opportunity would look very compelling, given our capacity. I think at 1 or even 2, I think we can afford to go to the mat if it gets difficult and sticky. That's just how I would look at it in terms of doing this. And so, again, I think CD, we like to fully bake things before we bring them to you. This is one of those sticky opportunities because of the timeline. If council doesn't feel comfortable going forward with this in whole or in part, we're totally fine with that, and we can we'll do our best to try to get an earlier look next year. We were definitely attracted by the location of some of these properties, but, you know, it's just like looking for a house for yourself. Every year, there's new ones that come online, and there will be new opportunities to look at this. So we're entirely comfortable with the direction of council on it, but we thought it was worth talking about with you.
I'm sorry, one of these is vacant, so I really think the biggest issue is with the three that are occupied. You know, if the other one remained vacant for a longer period, it's not an issue. I worry about the three that are currently occupied. So your confirmation that your staff could at least manage those three, confidently, you know, manage the work on those three.
I'm sorry, just to remind me, which one's vacant?
Inman?
For a compromise suggestion, I'm open to exploring 2 homes, the vacant one, and then testing out on one home that is occupied with a recommendation from you about which one.
I would suggest Stratford if we did that, and I would feel confident at those 2 properties that we could go to the mat on those.
Of which ones?
218 Stratford and 3069 Inman, so a vacant and an occupied.
Stratford being the most expensive one, but you say that one because it has the most potential, or?
Correct. There's all the different scenarios that could play out there. We think that one's worth the strategic risk.
But why the vacant one? Because it's not, through the chair, I'm sorry.
Goodrich is
The
bad.
vacant one isn't much of a test of a potential exciting, innovative program that we could shepherd through.
Probably a pathway to ownership
Yeah.
opportunity is essentially what we're looking at there.
It's the least,
Maybe two different tracks,
Has a
one
small-
would
Right.
be
that seems strange.
with the Verdale Housing Commission and the other one would be with the wraparound.
Okay, and with the second one was Stratford?
Correct.
I wouldn't mind staying away from Goodrich.
Well, yeah, it says bad, condition of building,
Yeah.
bad. Not attractive.
I'm sure the all caps didn't help either.
These figures are
I could
relative,
support
but
the other
my
three.
question about Stratford is, it's the most expensive on the price list. Granted, none of them are astronomical, but it's the most expensive on the price list with the least value in the Zillow estimate. Again, marginally, because the Inman was close, but, so, again, just help me understand the idea of Stratford.
Absolutely. The idea there is, and obviously that one is occupied, so step one is engaging the occupant. The fact that it is adjacent to city-owned property on Livernois, it backs up to essentially, basically 205 through 235 Livernois. So that creates an opportunity, whether that's a greenway type of connection, whether that's partnering on, green space that we're looking at for Livernois. A lot of the feedback we've heard about the property that we own in that area, it creates a compelling opportunity worth exploring. And we think that, given its proximity to Livernois, that if we were unable to consummate something there, it would be a relatively easy disposition.
And we don't know who lives at Stratford. Who
That's correct.
physically occupies, okay.
Correct. But that would be obviously step one is
Well, but I'm more concerned now picking Stratford over these other two that it's a blank slate. We don't know who it is.
Right.
All right, I would move that the city council approve the purchase with available funds to the capital account 3069 Inman and 218 Stratford for unpaid taxes, fees, and fees as determined by Oakland County Treasurer's Office, and further authorize the mayor and city manager to execute documents related to the purchase for a public purpose.
I support.
And for the record, we have to say for a public purpose, just in the purchase of property.
Is there anyone, by the way, from the public that is here to comment on this item? None of the property owners, apparently, or tenants. All right. All right, it's been moved and supported. Now, further discussion.
I'd just like to point out that 347 Bennett is only 10,454. It's actually one of the lowest, it is the lowest
It's the lowest price
priced.
with the highest assessed value.
Yeah. Is it worth the consideration to include that one as well?
Through the chair, I thought what I heard, because I'll be honest with you, I'd pick up all four of them if it were just up to me.
Oh, I wouldn't pick up Goodrich.
But I would. But the issue, from what I heard, is it's not the value or the return on investment, but the work effort if things get difficult by staff.
Right.
Yep.
So, if you want to add one more, I would not object to that. Like I said, I'd go for all four if I could.
I would like to add the 347 Bennett. That really gives two occupied homes that the staff works with.
Okay.
Now we're just excluding.
I would accept that, I will accept that as a friendly amendment. Who supported me?
Melanie.
Councilwoman Piana.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought-
No, Polika I have as support.
No.
No.
But I wrote that wrong. It's Piana, okay. Is that a friendly amendment to you?
It is.
Yeah.
Technically not supposed to do a friendly amendment
Oh.
per parliamentary procedures, since I am not going to support that emotion.
Okay, so then no, so then you'd have to remove your motion. You would have to withdraw your motion.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So
and-
I
and a
withdraw
new
my motion, and I
would
would
have
like
be
to
made.
move
Yes.
that city council approve the purchase with available funds in the capital account of 3069 Inman, 218 Stratford, 347 East Bennett, for unpaid taxes, fees, and fees as determined by Oakland County Treasurer's Office. Further authorizes the mayor and the city manager to execute all documents related to the purchase for a public purpose.
Support.
Is there support? All right, moved by Martin and now supported by Polika.
So we're up to 3 instead of 4?
So we're up to 3.
We're down to 3 instead of 4.
We're up to 3.
Well,
Well,
why
I
not just- no,
proposed
just
2.
kidding.
You know my view.
My
Well,
chili
why not?
peppers just went up a little bit.
Well, my reasoning is that there are two occupied homes. The third one's vacant.
There's 3 occupied homes. So how, what
No, the
rationale?
the three that we are selecting,
Yeah.
two of them are.
2 of them are
Two are occupied,
One
one's
is
vacant.
Right. I mean, I get to Councilwoman Piana's comments about staff capacity, the ability to create this program, what could very well be difficult wraparound services. So I was more comfortable with 2, honestly. I'm most comfortable with 0, because in an ideal world, we would create the program first and then go out and look for houses. So this totally feels backwards to me, buying the houses before we have a program, before I have an idea what kind of services they're going to need or burden on staff it's going to be. So personally, that's why I was like, all right, if we're gonna dabble in it, I liked 2. And just to be clear though, the list was longer the initial list from the treasurer was longer than 7, right? So 4 was
Correct.
sort of your
Correct.
small grab.
Yep.
May I make one other comment, just one opinion, is that I fully am sensitive and appreciate the staff capacity issue, but I look at this too, and this is, I guess, just a message for staff. You brought this to us.
That's right.
If you don't have capacity, don't bring me this.
Right, right. We'll take these 3 and we'll work it.
So my reaction to that is, you may have the capacity to do this, but we gave you a laundry list of things in the strategic plan to do.
Yep.
So it's not my concern about your capacity to do this as much as it is what doesn't get done
Right.
on that list, which we all sort of have agreed to. So that's my and that's not a criticism. Your department had more than any other department in terms of the things to do. So that's where I get, what will be delayed or maybe not done as quickly as a result of taking on another project which was not part of our strategic plan and was not vetted by us, although I am fully supportive of the concept. So there's no magic number to these. I'd prefer 2, but, it's up to the will of council on
No,
that one.
that's fair.
But, yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I do. I guess the investor in me saw the third property and thought, if we're gonna throw some eggs in baskets, let's throw another one in.
Other comments or questions?
Just a comment. This was a good discussion.
It was a
Thank you,
great
guys.
discussion.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you bringing it forward. I appreciate my
Yeah,
colleagues.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very innovative, I think someone's used the word innovative, and it is innovative. I'd be curious what other, I know cities like Detroit are doing this. I'd be curious if there's other communities like in Oakland or Macomb County that have similar programs.
Southfield is?
Huh?
Southfield is, city of Southfield, so
is?
we could
So I'd
definitely
love
work
to
on
see,
Oak Park.
what
Yeah, in
kind-
Southfield.
Yep, and what kind of what lessons learned, the lessons learned from some of those. And I get that we don't necessarily want to wait a year to take advantage of this opportunity, but I'd love to know what lessons learned other communities like ours have gained. All right, so there's a motion and a support to include Inman, Stratford, and Bennett. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion?
Yes. You're gonna get my support, but it's gonna be on you.
I said
I
short
welcome it,
leash.
for sure.
I get it.
Okay. And then we need to talk, because we do. About housing. I'm supposed to partner with Southfield in my job for housing. So, let's
Nice.
talk.
Sounds good.
All right, any other comments or questions?
Run the roll.
That's my job. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
No, only because I'd prefer it to. All right, good discussion. Item E is a consideration of Fair Wall Street design.
This one should be a lot less chili peppery. It's CN Resources paying for the final component of the Fair Street Wall. So if you recall back when we approved or you approved on April 9th, the initial purchase of the wall panels, we had referenced a custom design that was being in the process of fabrication by a local artist, Mark Serra, and that design is completed. You have in your packet sort of the cost from Future Fence to essentially build molds for that design and to install it on the wall. Essentially, we're talking about 35 of 104 panels. Essentially, what they do is so the project can move along on schedule. They make repeated molds instead of just one. So this way we're not waiting 8 weeks for these custom panels. So we'll be able to stay on track. In fact, June 18th is the date where we expect to see things really start to move on the wall, where the project will really start rolling. So what you see before you is a request not to exceed $51,750 to finalize that component of the project. That includes the design and the rights to it, which is also in your packet as well, and then, of course, the fabrication and installation. And so that's what is here before you today.
What's council's pleasure?
I move that city council approve the expenditure of funds not to exceed $51,750 for the design, fabrication, and installation for the CN screen wall as presented by the CED department, and that the city manager be authorized to execute the contract. The expense will be charged to account 445-00-977.000.
Support.
Moved by Polika, supported by Martin. Now discussion.
I like the design.
I do too.
I was the only one that went, they look like mountains to me.
No, they're train couplings.
I get that, that's the idea.
All right.
But it's lovely, and it's better than an ugly wall, and it's gonna be attractive, and I appreciate you bringing this forward in a manner that doesn't slow the project down, so I'm supportive of it.
No ugly walls.
No ugly wall.
So to play on your previous statement, we're actually going to build our wall before the other aforementioned wall.
That's right.
And CN will pay for it.
That's right, and we're getting the party to pay for it. So,
And
in fact,
CN's gonna pay for it.
and we already have the money in our account, so that's pretty cool.
Outstanding.
That's right.
Thank you.
Whether it will keep the rats at bay, I don't know, but. All right.
It's time to move on.
Thank you for the extra mileage on that joke. That was great.
It was your brilliant joke to begin.
All right, if there's no further discussion, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Leaks May,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika,
Yes.
Councilmember Piana,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Breaking news, the White House's economic advisor Larry Kudlow has had a heart attack.
Oh, Lord.
Wow. All right, our final item, excuse me for the interruption, but
Full agenda.
it's kind of a thing, is formerly item E on the consent agenda, which is the approval of the Chariot Shuttle Services Agreement as submitted by our Assistant City Manager.
Wait till the end.
Just to make you wait till the end, Joe. No, because for obviously good reasons.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. I apologize to the gentlemen that, that are going to be presenting on this, but I'm an employee of Ford Motor Company, and Chariot is a subsidiary of Ford Motor Company. And Ford Motor Company has won the Ethical Award, one of the top ethical companies in the world for the past 8 years, and I don't want to lose that award because I voted on something that I shouldn't, so.
Right. But otherwise, I mean, I think we've heard this. So I don't know, are there any questions or comments about this item?
No, it's awesome.
It is pretty awesome. All right.
Yeah, so I thought I'd provide just a brief introduction for the public, the viewing public and city council, and then introduce Chariot. Thank you for your brief stay. Luckily, you came in on a small agenda evening. Nothing going on here tonight. City council and the public, I'm here to present an update on the temporary parking solutions for the DOT project, or as I like to call them, the TPS report, if you will. This is an update on the TPS reports. The TPS solutions are various solutions that we're providing to the downtown business community during the parking project is traffic congestion relief and parking congestion relief when we will take the Lot 6 or the West Troy lot down during construction. So if you remember, we've been bringing certain things up over the past several months. The first thing we brought up to the public was downtown valet. And we will have Star Treks under agreement to provide downtown valet during construction to the business community. We have, in December, we brought forth an agreement, a shared parking agreement with the Ferndale First United Methodist Church. So we secured 70 parking spaces that we'll be leasing from the church, which are currently going to be coming online. And then tonight, I'm here to present a shuttle agreement. You'll be seeing a shuttle that's going to be operated by Chariot, and we're here to introduce them tonight, to introduce the Chariot line, and to introduce the route and how it will work within Ferndale's downtown. With further ado, here's Chariot.
Great, thanks, Joe, and I'm Wyatt Tennant. I'm the team lead here in Southeast Michigan, or Metro Detroit for Chariot. Thanks so much for having us and allowing us to speak tonight. I wanted to give a very brief overview on Chariot as a whole and kind of comb through some of the conversations that we've been having with the Ferndale city officials on what we've developed, and then certainly open it up for questions. So Chariot was started in San Francisco. It's a app-based mobility company that was acquired by Ford Motor Company, or really Ford Smart Mobility, in 2016. Under the guidance of Ford, we've really taken a proactive approach on launching new markets, and we're excited to finally be arriving in Metro Detroit. We think it's very important that we're here, and we're excited to be here. I had contacted Jordan and was fortunate enough to have a number of other meetings with city officials here a few months back, and some of the broader picture of how Chariot fits into the urban settings and getting people out of their cars and around to places of interest kind of turned into how can we develop a parking lot solution for some of these parking lots that are going offline. So if you're wondering what a Chariot is, it is a transit van, 14-passenger transit van. It can be an 8-passenger as well for wheelchair accessibility, but here's a picture of it. You've got it in your packet as well. I wanted to touch briefly on the drivers that we hire for Chariot. I think it's important, especially for a safety component. We hire all of our drivers. All of our drivers are W-2 employees. They're not contracted individuals. We own all of our vehicles. We maintain them. We create safety tests. All of our drivers are background check, screen, drug and alcohol screen, on-the-road driving tests. There's a lot of upward mobility for our drivers. They look at it as a potential to drive, to become team captains, to work at the lot, to get into fleet operations. So we take a lot of pride in that, and we know that our drivers are the first to touch base with the public facing and the customers. Here's a couple of screenshots on how it works. For those individuals here in the public that will be using the app, and we certainly want to promote the app usage, There's a nice tech component to this that we can help provide user information as far as ridership and times and things like that we hope to be able to share with the city of Ferndale. It's all done through the app. So if they are parking, we'll make sure to have signage out there that anyone in the public can download. They can search the particular routes. There's not going to be a lot of them. There's going to be one circulating route, so they won't be difficult to search through. They'll be able to check in. They'll also be able to track where the Chariot is. If they just pull into their parking place, they'll be able to see, is the Chariot 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away, and then they'll be able to board. I do want to make note that we will be promoting the app usage where we think there's a lot of value there. However, we won't be denying any sort of onboarding. If someone is pulled into parking and hasn't downloaded the app or doesn't have a smartphone, the drivers will be instructed to still be able to take them on. I touched on this briefly in a couple of slides ago, but just so you know, it's a lot more than just a transit van that's suddenly going to be in the neighborhood. There's a lot to it, more than just transportation. We do house all of our driver operations, our dispatch, our 24/7 customer service. Our vehicles are maintained every 45 days. They go out for routine cleaning. There's a number of perks and a consideration that goes into the vehicle maintenance. All the vehicles that are here in Detroit, as we're just now launching this market, are all brand new. They just rolled off the line. So there's anywhere between 40 miles to 60 miles on a lot of these vans. So they'll be brand new for the community. To touch on briefly a couple of bullet points on how we hope to launch this in the community. We're going to work closely with city officials. We have been. But a real consolidated marketing effort, signage, tabling events, whether it's a local happy hour, whether it's really trying to get the word out and promote the downloads. So we'll have outside marketing as well that can either be a part of summer Ferndale events or on the sidewalk, really getting people to understand what the Chariot is, where it's going to be, and having a chance to look at the route so they can plan their parking around downtown events. I had said the monthly performance calls, we want to take a look at this over the course of the first months to see the usage. We've developed a route that we think will service the outlined parking lots you all have identified with the church and the Kulik Center, and we've tried to identify points of interest, hopefully loop in Pleasant Ridge as well. But that doesn't mean it's set in stone. We will work closely with city officials. Hopefully there is some app usage so we can gain understanding of how the program is performing. And if we need to alter the route, if we need to change things based on demand or based on asks in the community, we will certainly do so. So if you have the map in front of you, this is the proposed route that we're looking at. Now, you probably see a number of numbers there. Some of those are simply dummy spots to make the route go the way they are. But what we're proposing is one wheelchair accessible vehicle running Thursday, Friday, and Saturday between the hours of 4 p.m. and midnight. It's also been decided that a second wheelchair accessible vehicle will run during peak hours on those same days. So Thursday and Friday, Saturday night from 5 until 10 p.m. We're still fine tuning the exact stops, but this is, like I said in here, hopes to encompass portions of Pleasant Ridge. Certainly the parking lots that you guys have established contacts with, hoping to leverage the smart stops along Woodward and general points of interest in Ferndale. So as I said, we're looking at this as a 6-month pilot program. We want to see the usage. We want to see if this is something that the community gets behind. We certainly would be interested in developing more of a demand responsive, app-based, getting people to and from downtown, community members, local, adjacent communities. But I think this is a great opportunity to start that. I also had a few different conversations with Joe and his colleagues around charter services, specifically some of the large, summer events here in downtown Ferndale, and being able to use our number of vehicles off the lot on more of an hourly basis to help with any sort of parking issues or getting people to and from those events. And lastly, and the final, if there is a future, when you look at this from getting creative and finding funding for things like this, there may be an opportunity for sponsorships or custom rent vehicles for local businesses. So that's all I had. I'm happy to answer questions as well. I'll hang out here for a little bit.
So let me ask, are there any questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Well, question. So as far as the business owners, have they bought into this idea as well? I mean, this is something that would be beneficial to them as well, but what's been their response is what I'm asking.
We haven't broad brushed it through the business yet. We have represented this to the DDA Executive Committee and the DDA Board, and they've been very positive. Actually, in May, the board approved supporting it and pledging additional match funding to the city's auto parking pledge. So I can say that the Pleasant Ridge DDA and Pleasant Ridge City Council is interested in taking this up and supporting it as well in July. We've spoken to their city manager just this week.
If I may, through the chair, supporting it financially?
Correct. They're looking to match some additional monies toward it as well in order to get the loop. And actually, I spoke with their city manager this morning, and he gave some input on adjusting the route through the Pleasant Ridge as well.
Right.
So they'll get that input as long as they take that up in July.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I have some questions. So you're gonna have set stops at certain parking lots, is that correct? It's not gonna be, certain corners or intersections, it's strictly gonna be people parking in pre-selected lots that are gonna be picked up and dropped off where?
I'm going to join at the hip with him, but I'm going to answer the parking lot question. So the two parking lots were predetermined by the outer lots that we intended to lease out and drive vehicles towards. So the Ferndale First United Methodist is going to be definitely one location because we lease the lots, and that's kind of driving the hours of operation because we contracted with the church for those hours, and we knew we secured 70 spaces during those hours.
Yep.
So we're going to be dropping and driving vehicles towards those locations, then circulating them through the downtown on these loops. As well as the Kulik Center, we're working to drive people there during those hours as well. And then additionally, the outer lots, you're going to see it driving by those outer lots, but I think we're working with SMART as well to see if we can co-locate on those stops. But I don't know whether that question has been answered yet.
The question has been asked, it hasn't been answered yet. But we do think that co-locating with those SMART stops makes a lot of sense. In previous discussions with SMART, they see the real gap in their service being last mile service. And so this brings an opportunity to not only, solve our own concerns, but, connect to that system as well.
Okay.
Yeah, something that we're looking at are both the northbound and southbound Woodward stops, for SMART, the 9-mile Liver North stop, Kulik Center, obviously, First United, and then a couple of stops that would be strategic to Pleasant.
So if I park in the Methodist Church parking lot, I get picked up by Chariot, do I just tell them I want to go to Painting with a Twist, or do I tell them I want to go to this corner on Woodward, Woodward
Like
and?
Lyft.
Pardon?
It's not like Lyft, is it?
So it'll be predetermined based on the stops that we have. So in that
Okay.
instance, if you want to get, say, right downtown, it'll probably be the northbound SMART stop on
Okay.
Woodward, if we're able to secure that. I'm just thinking if you do, you head south on Woodward out of First United, you make that first U-turn up to head towards Pleasant Ridge, that would probably be your most logical. Whatever the stops we agree upon, all of those will be built into the app. If this user is not using the app, then they're gonna have to instruct the driver. We see a lot of driver training on this within just, being open to the public and having this central. We want them to understand what this is used for and not to have them just driving people all over Ferndale on a respond basis.
Okay. How is construction gonna play into it? Because, it's orange barrel season, and sometimes our roads are partially closed or completely closed. We also have special events, so how do you work around those routes when you're forced to? And will people know? I mean, if I'm on the app and I'm expected, where am I getting my alternate pickup if I can't get picked up on West 9 Mile, for example?
Yeah, as far as I understand, flexing the loop isn't going to be a problem, and we'll be working hand in hand with the transportation planner who's involved in all the engineering and road projects. So I think that there's going to be a lot of coordination between his department and Chariot in terms of any adjustments that would need to be tweaked with the loop, and that would be pushed out immediately, correct?
Right, any of that messaging, any stops that are gonna be, changed, certainly can be, obviously with planning ahead of time. This is only running 3 days per week. And if anyone is an app user, all of that messaging would be sent out via the app or email through our customer service. we also think a lot of this is gonna come down to the way that we create our signage and direct people. So in certain instances, these one-offs, we don't need to do some just legitimate street signage.
Has there been more conversations regarding the schools, and you didn't mention them, so has that kind of, the school lot being used, or is that still kind of a distance, was not an issue
The
with
last
that?
conversation that we'd had with the schools, that the school lot was available up until early August, but after August, when school is returned, it was going to be a challenge to make it openly available.
Right. So no?
So still dialogue.
Okay.
But no firm commitments in terms of steady hours of operation and guarantees, so.
Gotcha.
Still pursuing.
Large lot.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Piana.
Yeah, through the chair. I just wanted to say that I'm really excited by another innovation being brought to council to solve some pretty big problems. And, you know, Jordan kicked it off months ago with proposing Fab Cab and trying to get our existing bus services to actually do something to help solve one of our problems, since a regional solution isn't forthcoming anytime soon, I don't think. So to that end, I really think, you know, putting this in place for getting people to the last mile and also connecting to 8 Mile and Pleasant Ridge, I think is really going to be helpful as we test and pilot this service. So I'm just really appreciative of you bringing this forward and see how it goes. I do think that the smart alignment with the stops is critical, and definitely could say renewal, smart millage renewal is up. It would really be great if they would support this for Ferndale as part of our support for the millage renewal. Just putting it out there. Since it's an easy win-win. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I wanted to talk to you offline about, I think there's 4 mobility solutions targeted to Nested Reeds, and that's for bus riders. We are subsidizing people with cars who have the income levels to actually get to our downtown via car vehicles. So if we're really serious about getting more people into our downtown during construction, if you have the other options, we need to have those on the table too, for fairness and equitable access to our downtown. So let's talk offline about that.
So we don't have a motion yet.
Oh, well, I'll toss one out. Oh,
All right.
wait a minute, there isn't one here.
There's
I move to approve the service agreement amendment with Chariot Transit, is this the right one? An amount not to exceed $76,920.
That's the right amount, motion? Sounds like it.
It's the right motion. I think you could strike the word amendment. That was a mistake by my part.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, did we approve this already? It is
Support.
late.
Strike the word amendment. It is supported by Martin, moved by Piana. All right, further discussion, comments, questions? All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Martin,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you very much. That item is adopted. Thank you for being here, sir. All right, that concludes our regular agenda this evening. We'll move on now to call to council, and we'll start with Chief Palazzolo, and apologies for the wrong title earlier, but nothing for the good of the community this evening, sir. All right. Lorena, anything else from the Recreation Department this evening?
Just a few announcements. Wanted to give an update about our Adopt-A-Garden. We actually had our first planting on June 2nd and went very well. We had over 8 members from the community come and assist with that at Harding Park. We also, as I mentioned before, have our Walk with Ease program on Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 a.m. and Fridays at 9:30 a.m. That program is structured for seniors. However, everyone is welcome, so feel free to join us. This first session is a 6-week session, and then following that, we'll start a new 6-week, but people can start joining at any time, and it's absolutely free. And we walk at Harding Park. It's a led walk by staff. And our youth soccer opened today, and we already have 30 people registered, or 30 kids registered, and we feel we're going to sell out again like we did in spring. So just encouraging everyone who's interested in registering their kids for youth soccer to do so. Our Fusion Festival registration is open. We currently have our early bird specials, so you'll receive a $5 discount if you get your tickets now. And that'll be held on July 28th, and that's our Fitness, Health, and Wellness Festival at Martin Road Park.
With goat yoga.
Well, unfortunately, she'll be out of town that weekend, so.
A goat? All right, thank you.
So, but we'll see what else we have coming your way at Fusion. Also, I'm happy to announce that our Wanda Park improvements are going to be starting soon. We already mentioned the ball diamonds through our CDBG. We have DPW starting as early as this week and next week to start working on some of the improvement with tree plantings, and I'm working on the water issues that we have at Wanda. And we will actually be submitting a postcard to residents in the area by next week, where there's going to be a survey that they can actually participate in the park planning for Wanda Park. And it'll also be on Facebook for anybody that wants to participate in that survey. So I just wanted to make that announcement. It'll be coming out very soon.
Good. Sorry, through the chair, could you clarify the water issues at Wanda? Is that flooding?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe is that the northeast, in the corner near the residential homes. There's a lot of flooding there. We'll just leave it at that, and it'll be addressed.
Okay, thanks.
Southeast.
Southeast, okay. And with that, all of our baseball diamonds are currently at capacity, which is a good thing. We're running out of space, but that means programs are filling things up, and that's what we want. Summer camp registration is open. We are already sold out at week 1 and week 2. So anyone's interested in registering, I encourage you to do so. And summer camp starts next week. I also want to announce that our book and game share library is ready. We're partnering with the Ferndale Library, who will help fill the book share, or at least to initiate it. It'll be going at Kulik as well as Geary Park. We're having a book share blast-off event on June 20th at Kulik for that book and game share, and then there'll be another one later in July for Wanda Park.
Very cool.
Safety Town will be having summer safety at Safety Town, which will be held on June 28th. And we also have the firehouse and police present, as well as other volunteers and representatives from CED to assist with that event. And lastly, I would like to encourage everyone in this room and in our lovely city to participate in our virtual 5K, which will be held on July 21st and through 22nd, so you can pick a day. It's an actual 5K. So you will pick a location that you want to do your 5K, whether it's on your treadmill or in one of our lovely parks. You would register online like you would do any other 5K. You get a medal, T-shirt, everything, but it's at the convenience of wherever you want to do it. You don't have to worry about the crowds.
That's false advertising.
It's like a no dinner dinner.
I got all excited. I'd finally do a 5K.
Well, you can get a group of people and you can do it together.
They can carry me, maybe. That would be the only
How do you
way.
sign up for that? Where is that on the website?
That's on our website. It's also, through our website.
Yeah.
And it's on Facebook as well. And we're partnering with M-Parks on that, so when you sign up, make sure you pick Ferndale. We get 50% of the proceeds.
Nice.
And that's all I have for tonight.
Question.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Wanda Park, are you expecting the improvements to be done by the end of the summer?
Well, there's gonna be 2 phases to Wanda Park. In the perfect world, yes. But at least phase 1 will be completed by then, but the phase 2 will be the MDNR grant, and that just depends on when we can get the RFPs out and get all of,
Okay, that won't be done till next year.
so probably spring,
Let's
but
be
we'll
honest.
see.
Okay, because I would really love to see a rededication for that park. It's gonna be the one that's probably transformed the most with what we're doing, so I think it would be a great idea to do that.
Good.
I hope I wasn't stealing any of
No.
Councilwoman Leaks May's thunder.
Share the wealth.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Parking, any parking issues or updates for the good of the community?
I wish we'd
Yeah.
call them mobility updates.
Mobility updates, thank you, Councilwoman, that's a much better term.
Just to keep an eye out for some changes coming in the signage regarding Park Mobile and soon to be released Park Ferndale parking app.
Didn't call on
Jump
you.
on, I'll jump on that as well. I'll piggyback on the parking too. Yeah, over the next couple weeks, the public and downtown businesses will be seeing Park Ferndale signage coming up. Park Ferndale is the name of the new parking mobile pay app that will be replacing Park Mobile. So those users who do use Park Mobile will be able to use Park Ferndale now, a new app that will be available for download out of the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store for you to download. So if you do use Park Mobile, you might be receiving instructions to download that new
Will you
app
get
as
those
well.
instructions?
You sure will.
If you
through-
get- oh,
Through your
good.
associated email
Good.
account. Yep. Park Mobile will be pushing those
Gotcha.
instructions out.
Okay.
And so over the coming weeks, you'll be seeing new signage, new instructions for that, as well as new communication materials from up over all the businesses in downtown Ferndale. We'll have that stuff for you.
Excellent. DPW, anything for the good of the community this evening?
We did some sidewalk work in the downtown area, so we could have made a little bit of ruckus or racket early in the morning, a little bit yesterday, so any inconvenience that caused, apologize for that. So far, construction's just moving along in all the, projects that, Gibson Webster has going on throughout the city. Haven't heard a ton of complaints on those, so maybe Gibbles is, we're not, so I like that, it's a good thing. Other than that, business as usual, keeping busy. And, you know, doing what Ferndale does best, so.
Very good.
Chair, if I may, I'm getting a lot of complaints, a significant amount more lately, about our trash pickup and the recycling pickup and those beautiful new barrels we have. Really? Can we give feedback to the garbage people? That's not the right term for them, but the yes, that it's
Refuse
not an Olympic
collectors?
sport how far they can hurdle or how hard they can hurdle those barrels.
Is that the complaint?
That
that
is
they-
the
they
complaint,
throw
and they're
'em too
breaking.
far?
They're throwing, and so the privately owned trash barrels are breaking and the recycled ones are breaking. And not out of durability, the feedback I'm getting is they are just hurdling them at the sidewalks and the path, so.
Wow.
And I have to say, I've witnessed it myself.
Okay, well, if
So-
a resident does have that issue where their actual trash can is damaged, they can take that up with a trash hauler for possible reimbursement for that can. As far as recycling cans go, all of our new mixed-use recycling 64-gallon cans do have a 10-year warranty on them.
Okay.
So if you get a broken wheel, you get a broken lid, Sakura, give them a call, you set your can out on a Thursday, they'll come by, either repair it or replace it free of charge, so.
That's great. If we can just get the feedback to the trash hauler as well, that'd be
No,
great.
absolutely.
Thank you.
By the way, this is Dan Antosik. He's our new administrative manager at DPW.
Hey.
Official.
Awesome. Kara, anything from community engagement and communications this evening?
Don't worry, I got a nice long presentation for you.
Oh, good.
On Chariot?
She's not kidding.
This is super quick, but this lovely website of ours that we updated last year gives us real estate on the homepage to be able to address things that are being asked about more than usual.
Yeah.
And as we know in the summer, that is construction. So,
Right.
if you scroll down just a little ways on our homepage, you'll find that we've grouped all of our kind of main construction pages. We've got Livernois, which content is still a little slight there. We're building those pages out now. We've got roads and streets, so you can click right into there, get a map of whether or not your street is scheduled this year. And then we'll also be doing weekly updates that we get from DPW. And then we have more about CED's current and upcoming projects. So this will make it easier if you have people asking questions. We can just go right to the homepage. They can find everything they need to know about that.
Excellent. Thank you. Anything from HR this evening, Dan?
That's right.
All right. How about from finance? All right. Jordan, anything else from CED this evening?
Couple quick announcements.
Excellent.
So first, speaking of Livernois, the Livernois Business Support Services has begun launching. We have our first business focus group, which will meet every 2 weeks until the end of construction on June 14th at 2 PM at City Hall. We've got a lot of great interest from the business community. Residential community is obviously invited as well to participate. Let us know how the services are going. Are you getting notifications? Are there any issues with contractors? And how are the services working? So the businesses that work with us and talk to us and provide their feedback are going to help us tweak and adjust and expand those services. Also, speaking of businesses, our first ever Ferndale Soup event will be June 27th, at the Rust Belt Market at 6 PM. That is through our partnership with the Build Institute. So if you want to see some entrepreneurs pitch some really cool ideas, if you want to compete to have your idea pitched, go online, go to Facebook, Ferndale Soup, and you can get involved, or you can reach out to the CD department.
So, just through the chair, when I went to soup in the past, also, if you want to cook soup, bring it. Is that still the case?
That
Or
is correct,
okay.
yes. It's a potluck style event.
Potluck event.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Are you bringing soup?
No.
You'd be surprised about how
I'll
many
be
people
there.
do.
No
If you
soup
need
for
soup,
you.
I'll buy some. but,
No soup
yeah.
for you. All right. Good. That, all right, Joe, anything else from Assistant City Manager's office? Why, yes.
Just wants us to
Well, I think why change the topic? Let's just keep talking about parking. On Thursday, I will be speaking at the DDA board meeting about parking. I will be also addressing them about the change to the Park Ferndale application, but also I wanted to touch base on the other TPS solution that the DDA is going to be leading. The DDA will be taking up the passage of their TPS solution, which is being proposed for the usage of a partnership with Lyft. They will be approving funding to support a program that will provide Lyft rideshare codes to downtown employees. And that is going to be a major DDA program that they're going to be providing to support the downtown employees during construction. They will be bringing that up during Thursday's meeting. And I just wanted to round out the TPS solutions, and I will be bringing back a more comprehensive, holistic presentation to June 25th that will include that update once it's approved on Thursday by the board, to City Council and the public on June 25th during that meeting. And I also want to take this opportunity that we will be bringing a PUD variance update to present to City Council on June 25th, and that public hearing was mailed out to the public last week.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Marnie, anything from the clerk's office?
Just letting everyone know that we've sent out our permanent absentee voter applications, so we are receiving tons of them back. So we do have absentee ballot applications available now, and we'll have the ballots available, and we'll be sending those to anyone who's submitted an application by the end of the month.
We're like 2 months out from the election, right?
Wow.
Yes.
That time.
It's coming. Yeah.
7
Yeah.
weeks.
Excellent. All right. April, anything for the city manager's office?
Just an announcement as it relates to the police assessment. We are on track for all of the focus groups that we're going to be running, as well as interviews with city council. Both Chief Palazzolo and the company are staying very true to our timeline. So right now, we're, I think, a little ahead of schedule, I think. So things are going very well, and we look forward to meeting with you guys in the next week, as well as I think we're going to have about 70 to 80 people within our focus groups as well.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. Dan?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
All right. Councilman Martin?
Nothing tonight.
All right. Councilwoman Lee Spain?
Well, I would just want to congratulate Ferndale's own Gordon Mattson and Tim Osawella for their beautiful service marriage ceremony over this past weekend. I wish them many years of love and happiness. It was a beautiful ceremony, something to see. I've
Complete
got
with
pictures.
horse and carriage?
Oh, yes.
I know, right? That's awesome.
But that is it for me tonight.
Excellent. Mayor Pro Tem Pelican?
Just one thing, I will be holding my monthly What's on Your Mind meet and greet, sit-down chit-chat on Monday, June 18th, so it's a week from today at 4 o'clock at Zeke's Rock and Roll Barbecue. I want to thank Councilman Martin for, last month, I had a personal situation last minute, and he met with residents at One-Eyed Betty's for me, so I appreciate you stepping in and doing that for me. That's all I have.
Excellent. Councilwoman Piana?
I just wanted to say thank you to City Council for approving our membership in the Detroit Regional Chamber. I was able to represent the city up at the Mackinac Policy Conference on issues of municipal finance reform, which, is one of the forefront topics up there. And so I just want to say thank you to Kara and April and Cheryl for putting together Ferndale's Headley story, which was probably the clearest, most concise document put together ever on municipal finance reform for one city, which was very appreciated by the media, and I think we made tons of connections, and we'll be moving forward with this issue in the next year. You're going to hear a lot of it from me, so over the next 15 months, so.
Excellent. And Jordan was up there as well, representing Ferndale as part of the Chamber's Emerging Leaders program, so that was awesome, making great connections. We met with someone who wanted to talk about Ferndale's most popular subject, how to open a marijuana business in town, so just couldn't escape it, even on Mackinac. But great job up there. So the only thing I want to say is I want to express my appreciation to my colleagues for your condolences and support during the transition of my father. And many of you filled in for me for various things, and and you reached out to me, and members of the community as well, and it's very much appreciated. So I feel very supported by this group, and I'm very grateful for it. So thank you. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.